conductivity.
Wow, gotcha. Yeah.
And we used to make all kinds
Yeah,
of stuff.
we're going live.
You're on, Larry.
Good afternoon, everyone. And so today we are doing a workshop.
Your microphone on?
Maybe, yes. It is. Thanks. Today will be a workshop instead of a regular meeting. We have 3 agenda items, and I will open up the comment period. So the 3 agenda items are ongoing capital, review of 5-year capital, and discussion and review of the utility rate study. We need to look at the order, but we need to get some things organized for this meeting today too. But let's open up for any comments, and then I'll go over the agenda and discuss things with the committee. So can you put up the phone number? So again, to make sure, in case you can't see it, the number is, if anybody wants to call in. Josh, I forgot to ask, is there any comments that were sent in? No. Okay, thanks. Okay, I forgot to ask that the last couple of times. So the call-in number is 702-589-9629. We'll give just a little bit of time for somebody to call in if they have any questions, comments.
You're on.
Okay, yes, for the record, good afternoon, everyone. Fred Volz. Looking at the 11/30/2020 capital project spreadsheets, its available budget versus the revised budget continues to show a large discrepancy between projects completed and budgeted amounts. While over 41% of fiscal year 21 has passed, just over 21% has been spent or encumbered. The virus impact can't justify the continued over-budgeting and incomplete projects. It is an ongoing problem that needs to be fixed as it impacts the rate study you will be further discussing today. While the 5-year capital project forecast drops off precipitously in new projects beginning in fiscal year 22, the huge backlog of undone projects with no clear path toward catch-up should give committee members reason to hesitate with new projects, even if they are needed. The city lacks the capacity to implement these projects in a given fiscal year's 12 months. What came up at the City Council's December 8th capital project meeting applies to your discussed agenda items today. Namely, Member Todd brought up that some equipment purchased and then stored in an unsecured facility has been stolen or deteriorated from exposure to our extreme weather conditions. A pitch was made at the City Council meeting by city staff to buy materials for projects that haven't started in order to lock in lower prices, which is fine. However, if we are going to lose some of the materials to theft or the weather over an extended storage period, we need a secure, monitored place to store them. It has been suggested already that Bullock Field hangar be converted into a storage depot with 24/7 security. No money has been budgeted for this project, and even the access is problematic since it is a dirt road. The city has made no progress in installing security cameras for its various facilities since that project was approved 18 months ago. Regarding the Raftelis results, several committee members and a majority of the City Council have already expressed their opposition to a new franchise fee. This issue will also be on the June 2021 ballot as an advisory measure where the probability is high it will fail. It is worth removing this revenue source from the rate study. Similarly, the finance director's unilateral and undocumented attempt to boost central services reimbursement fees by 37% from fiscal year 21 to 22 needs a detailed explanation, which has not been provided to this committee yet. And I would ask that these comments be added to the record. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Okay, so we will wait. We'll wait just a few minutes or just a short time in case anybody else wants to call in, then we'll start up. Okay, I think that's probably long enough. So, I think one question I want to get out of the way before we go and start the agenda items is, there was some confusion on a couple things, so I want to start with the first one. Was, did we want to interact with Raftillis tonight, or do we want to just go among the own committee? The reason I bring that up is it's sort of the order of the, how we do this order and how long the first two will take. They're 2 hours ahead of us, and we want to make sure if we're going to call them, we call them in a reasonable time frame. I'm sort of thinking that I'm not sure there's going to be any value to questions unless somebody had something that they really thought. So I guess I'm going to just go around the room real quickly and just, Marty, do you think there's any reason?
No, if we're gonna spend a lot of time going through that report, as you pointed a bunch of things out.
Yeah, sorry. I think we can just do it ourselves this afternoon.
Okay. Greg?
I also agree with that. I think we've got too much on our plate to have a open line phone call we're having discussions about this, document.
Greg? George?
I agree.
And I agree too. And Eileen?
I agree.
Okay. So if you would just text or let them know that we won't be contacting them tonight, thanks for their being available. Okay, so then we can get the other, since we've got two people in the audience, we can get the first two out of the way and let you guys go once we're done, so we won't change the order then. So,
I wanna let them go.
unless anybody else had any concerns with the order.
I have one concern which we were discussing offline that I wanted to mention online, is Confucius doesn't get quoted very often in years, so I thought I'd start with that briefly. He said 3 things are needed for government: weapons, food, and trust. And he said you can give up, the first you should give up is weapons. If you have to give up 2, give up food, but do not give up trust. Trust should be guarded to the end. Without that trust, we cannot stand. And so I think that Larry Carr and Dennis Porter are not trustworthy. We had an agreement that we were going to submit the report on the FY22 CIP in time for the December 8th meeting. And the report was not submitted. I emailed the mayor and asked him, he wasn't aware of any report. He said he didn't know. And I think that's a betrayal. I mean, I don't want to inflame things and start amping things up, but it means they're not trustworthy. And that's all I have to say for now.
I think you went a little far. Go ahead, Greg. George?
I understand the confusion, but the problem we're having is when we're asked to have somebody do something that's not being carried out, and that's where the problem's stemming from. So I think we ought to take and use this as a lesson learned and then go forward. But yes, I understand what George is saying. We all had an agreement that this thing was going to be, the last meeting we had was going to be forwarded to city council, and it was not. It was just an error, an accident. So let's don't fry the messenger. Let's just carry forward and try to get it done this time.
I'll take total responsibility for that, and I don't know why in my head I thought we needed to get through this meeting today before we sent that forward, but that was my thought process. I apologize, and we'll move forward. I'll get it out as soon as we're done here today.
Well, respectfully, you asked us to get this report in time for that meeting. So I don't know why then once we got the report, you decided it wasn't. But I'm not in your head. I've been careful not to judge people's motives.
Fine.
That's not my job.
I understand.
I don't know what you're thinking. I'm just saying you're not trustworthy.
Wow.
Trustworthy is a little bit harsh word. We've been going at this for over a year now, but we're still trying to learn. We're still trying to interact with everybody. We're trying to work as a group. And so by calling people untrustworthy, you're not helping to let us work as a group.
We haven't done our job.
We are doing the best we can.
No.
And but it's better to, George, please help us by telling us, instead of it at the meetings going, you did this wrong. I don't see that you're helping us to say how we're going to do things right. So in the future, let's see if we can find out how to do things right, going in the right.
Doing things right is abiding by the resolution, which I keep coming back to. We're supposed to do yearly reports. We're a year and a half into this thing. We haven't submitted any reports. It's not what I want. It's what it says in the resolution that created this committee.
The resolution does not state that we create a report. It is not in the resolution. I agree that we want a report. I've been doing what I can to do that, but it does not state in the resolution we do a yearly report. It says we review things, that's all it says.
And report. I went to the Attorney General and they said that reporting written reports was the way to do it. So if you disagree with the Attorney General, you can call them up. They're open people. You can talk to them and say, on what basis do you think our committee should submit written reports? That's what they think. I can give you a guy's phone number if you want.
A written report is a way to do it. It's a way of doing it. It is not the only way of doing it. And George, we are trying to do it. So just, let's try to be civil about this, and saying somebody is untrustworthy, it's not being very civil about it.
It's just my opinion. I'm not saying maybe the other guys trust you. I'm saying I do not trust you. That's all I'm saying. That's my opinion. You don't decide whether I trust you or not.
Well, it's just a matter of what you, okay, no, that's it. Okay. So,
If I may, I think that in the future, if there is an item that we're discussing where we agree that something is to be done, that maybe Joshua or Dennis write it down so you've got a piece of paper in your hand when you go back to your desk, because I know it's easy when you walk out of here, your mind goes on to different things and you can't remember exactly what was said. But when we ask for an actionable item, write it down, and then let's move forward.
thanks, Eileen. I think that's, because that's, I think we're relying probably on the recording to do some of the deliverables. So it might be a little harder at the end of the meeting, but maybe we can, and last meeting was very tight. So last meeting was one we couldn't do, but maybe at the end of the meetings, we can do the deliverables and make sure that they're understood so we can repeat them. So thanks, Eileen. Okay, so let's see, it looks like we might have lost one of our, so let's go ahead and we'll go down the line. We'll start with agenda item number 1, the ongoing capital improvement projects. So Dennis, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, just a couple of updates here. City Council approved the Arizona Street feeder project as we had discussed last time. And it was obviously a little bit off budget, but we had some. How much was the total project? Oh gosh, just around $2 million. I don't have the exact number in front of my face. What we had done is cobbled together 3 different projects to make it the one project, and it was about $1.1 million, knowing that was probably going to be underfunded. Fortunately for us, we had that cable replacement funds available. We were able to augment the budget and make it work. So it basically ended up taking out about $150,000 off the fund balance. So it still worked with what we had done with the rate study. So there was no major impact. So you can thank Marvis for that, actually.
I guess did I misunderstand? Because I was thinking that they said it was the 1.6 was approved for that.
It was 1.6-ish for the actual bid amount, but then with the construction management and all that stuff on top of it is right around 2 million. And I can get you guys the actual number.
So what was able to shift around that made that so, because you're looking at
the underground cable,
800,000.
I believe it was the underground cable replacement that had already been approved in FY21.
Oh, okay.
So fortunately, Marvis had been doing a decent job with some inventory management, so we were able to utilize that to do that. And we really need to do that done because that's what helps us get rid of that substation up there.
The underground or the
Arizona Street feeder.
Right.
So, I mean, we put it in front of council that we could have done it in phases, but it really still had to be done by FY23 regardless. And based on everything we'd been seeing in our construction prices, it would have just cost us more if we would have waited. So, and we got to, it's a new company, so we're going to get familiar with these guys really fast. But it was a good bid, and they've got good references, so hopefully it goes well.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking about it is because we haven't put a nail in this utility fund capital project year-to-date yet. So I recommend that we amend the feeder Arizona Street to come up with the right amount of money in it for this budget for this year coming up. And we go ahead and just pencil in the reduction of the underground cable replacement and show in a column somewhere where we've done this money change. Because this is where things are getting complicated. Just like when we got the bid, or we're getting the bids back on the Arizona Boulder City tap to Buchanan job project, that's going to also be wrong also. We need to get these numbers kind of drilled into or changed when we get a bid in current that's going to change the budget around a little bit on projects.
Yeah, and Carol just did this, so, I mean, the item just happened at Tuesday night, last council meeting. So yes, it will be modified on this.
Yeah, because that's what we're working on today in the workshop is the
Right.
budget.
Yep.
But I think, Greg, I think if they put in the revised budget, so you've got the total approved in the left-hand side. Then about center, you have revised budget for 21. So we're in 21, I guess. So if that, if they show in the first column, the 1.156, and then in the revised, they need to show the, whatever that is, whether that's $2 million or whatever that is now. And then we're gonna have, I guess, whether we have a rollover column, or I guess that one's not gonna get rolled over. That one is gonna be, what, you put it in 23 or something? The underground cable?
No, we just eliminated it for now. So just because we were comfortable with the amount of inventory that Marvis has, so he was blessed in FY21 with getting that to begin with, so, we may have to do something like that way out in 5 years from now, but for right now, we're good, so.
Okay. So Greg, did I miss something? So if we use the revised budget, does that cover your?
What page is
So
what page is the revised budget? Because I got 4 of 165, and I'm looking at the 11/30/2020 capital projects year-to-date. I got the 9/30/2020 capital projects year-to-date. The numbers are exactly the same. Nothing's changed.
Right,
So when are we gonna change it?
it'll be changed before the next January meeting, so.
Because this is the document we're working on to have city council approve the capital CIP projects year-to-date. So if we're taking the cable money out to put it towards the Arizona feeder crossing, which is also cable, conduit, faults and other stuff, we have to show that money moving around. Otherwise, we've still got a document here that shows, for cable replacement, we've got a document showing for this carry forward $750,000.
Right,
We gotta get the books balanced, otherwise nothing's gonna jive. It's gonna blow up in our face.
yep, nope, you'll see it on the next report.
Yeah, well-
And, I mean, it had to be done, amended by city council before we modified it, so, yeah, you'll see it.
Okay, thank you.
So Greg, what we possibly could do is leave the underground cable on there, highlight that somehow, show that you had 750, take the revised 750 to 0, increase the feeder amount, and then you have the numbers would be similar. So by leaving it on there, I think it's maybe better to leave it on there to show what was there and what's been revised.
I agree for transparency, and then I would actually leave the project number and the underground cable replacement description on there also, and just show that the money's been moved to the feeder Arizona Street. And that way, that $750,000, we are gonna be replacing feeder cables down Arizona Street, so that is a viable number. We could
Right.
even move some of the Arizona Street money for the feeder cable replacement down Arizona Street, leave it in there, and then move that money down onto Arizona Street, saying this is part of feeder cable, just like we did on the Boulder
Right.
City Parkway project.
Yep, so what we could do is forward this committee the staff report that went to city council. It's very detailed on what we did, the actual budget, the amendment, the impact of fund balance, because the impact of the fund balance was the most important thing because it was minimal. So it didn't impact anything we'd done with the rate study, so that was a good thing.
No, that'd be helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess in the future, we might want to go over this report, the layout, because I think Fred Volz also had some comments at one of the one point or another, and I think we've asked to try to cover, so we might need two, this one and then like a closeout. Because something to follow up, okay, when we close out the year, how does things happen?
Yeah.
And this, I'm not sure this really gives us all that information.
Yeah, and maybe what I've been thinking, and I know Carol's been thinking about it too, is we actually do a project closeout for each individual project. So we know, obviously, what we spent on every individual project. That's a little more detailed, but, yeah.
Yeah, that would do, because I think I think we're still having a hard time seeing exactly what capital was spent for each utility for the past years. So that would be helpful.
Yep, okay. Just a little bit of update on some of the bigger projects. The BC Tap Buchanan is obviously moving forward. We expect to start getting equipment and poles delivered in March. So we still, it won't be done by the end of the fiscal year, but it should be done, before the end of August, I think-ish, somewhere in that time frame. So that's moving forward, and obviously that's a big project for us.
How much was the deviation on the budget versus what's actuals?
It's about 7%. So I don't know what that number actually is, but I can get that to you as well. Yeah, if we're within 7%, we're pretty comfortable with that number. Obviously, with Arizona Street, we were not within 7%. So, and our underground work has been coming in 12 to 15% higher for trenching and that kind of work. So we're going to have to pay close attention to that for the projects moving forward. Other than that, just a little update, quick update on the wastewater side. We've come to a conclusion on the headworks as far as a fine screen to put in that channel. We'll be actually purchasing that equipment and for the most part installing it ourselves. It's not overly complicated, so we should still stay within budget on that. I'm hoping that happens before the end of this fiscal year as well. That's S20004 on the capital project. That's taken a little longer than I had hoped it would take, but we went through a bunch of different alternatives trying to figure out what the best answer is for keeping grit out of those lagoons and not having to revamp the entire headworks and being able to utilize the existing channel, which is what we've been able to do. So that's been good. On the landfill, we've completed the survey for the entire acreage of the landfill, so we'll be moving forward with that expansion phasing plan. And I think I've mentioned to this committee that my biggest concern when I started at the city was the fact that the current plan was going higher in elevation, and with the wind, it's just not a good solution. So we're working with our consultant GES to be able to maintain the same exact capacity with the current landfill, but not going any higher than we are today. Because if you go out there today and if you just stand on that top level, that wind is, yeah, they just can't contain it. Mostly the plastic grocery bags, and they go all over the desert. So I think that's going to be an important and good fix for the landfill in the long term, and we're still going to be able to get our 100 years out of the capacity of that. So once we get the phasing plan done, we'll be able to work on the road, perimeter road. We're working with the contractor, our contract operator, to phase that in so he can just do it as part of our normal operation, and hopefully we don't have to spend a lot of money on the capital side. He'll just do it as he does his normal work. So that's a good thing. As far as the FY22, I know there are concerns, and Mr. Volz has brought them up about our capacity to get projects done and out the door. We're working on a plan as we speak to expedite those projects. We're moving forward with discussions with, hopefully with City Council soon on just getting a list of consultants available so that we can just pick them and go get these projects done, because our in-house capacity is limited. I mean, we got basically one technician who's really extremely good at getting projects done, but he's only one guy. And so he can only, technically can only do so many projects at one time. So we're going to look at outsourcing some of that work and potentially, hopefully, filling some of the vacant positions in Public Works to help us get those projects done, getting those scope of work and contracts to the point where they're ready to move forward with July 1st. So we can just move on FY22 projects. So that's kind of the plan we're working with to hopefully address Mr. Volz and my questions and your questions to get this stuff done. So it's been a little bit of a challenge. So
what, where would the additional funding come from for that?
it would be still coming out all of CIP. So it's all embedded in the CIP numbers as far as whether it's done in-house. One of the things that we're going to be starting to do that we haven't done in the past is we haven't been charging our time, whether it's Marvis or Mike. We haven't been able to charge their time towards CIP projects, so it's been coming out of their ops budgets, and so we're going to start doing that. And then if we have to use additional resources, they won't come out of the operations budget, they'll come out of the CIP, which is not uncommon with, the bigger cities or SNWA or some of those folks where the labor actually gets charged to the CIP projects versus their operating budgets, which is what's pretty much happening now, so.
That would be helpful, and I think that'd help the budget going forward, too.
It should, and I think
reduce the operating budget.
Yep, and we'll have a better idea going forward, too, on what that really means as far as the amount of time it's taking, tracking that time. We just haven't, historically, it just hasn't been done, so.
I believe we discussed the software last meeting, didn't we? And this is something that looks like that can go forward, that should be helpful for a lot of what you just said.
I think I brought it up because I was looking for support going forward as we work towards our next year's budget, as we don't currently have a computerized maintenance management system in place. And for a utility of this size, we should. I mean, these guys are doing everything by spreadsheets and by paper, and it's just something that we should have, and it should be integrated with our GIS. We have a lot of information in GIS, and it's valuable, but it's not tied to a CMMS system. And so that's something I'll be hoping, and it's not, for a $30 million utility-wide enterprise fund, it's really not that expensive. I think we're talking about $30,000 for implementation and $15,000 a year for licenses. I mean, it's just something that a utility, a city this size, should have already had a long time ago. So it's just something that really needs to be done. And then going forward, we'll be able to give data to committees such as this, better data to analyze and assess and for a director to use. And we just don't really have it right now. I mean, when I have to go ask Mike for, how many feet of sewer we've televised and jetted and cleaned, he has to go back through all his paperwork and total it up on a spreadsheet,
Well, it sounds like something that should be, gotten sooner than later, because then I guess if I'm hearing you correctly, we're hoping to get more on track in fiscal year 22. Mm-hmm. And if you had the program started, then we can start with somewhat maybe more of a clean slate and be able to cover a lot of different issues.
It would certainly be very helpful, yes.
Okay.
Larry? So if the crew starts charging their time directly to the capital improvement projects, mm-hmm. then the salaries for O&M should be going down, correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
so I would expect over, say, the next 5 years, we'd be able to trend that and manage the operation budget and the CIP budgets differently than we are now, because that just hasn't been tracked historically. So, yeah, in theory, right, if you look at our 5-year CIP, you would hope and think that our operating budget could go down, right? Because those dollars are being put to the CIP. Now, right now, we don't have the staff, so it doesn't matter, but once we get 2 linemen filled and hopefully we budget for some additional people, and I remember we did that analysis in white paper that showed that it makes sense for us to do some of that construction work in the house. Right now, we don't have the capacity, so.
Okay. But we could expect to see the reduction in the salaries on the budgets.
Eventually, yes. I don't know how soon that would happen, but yeah. Yeah, like I said, right now, it would be nice if we had the tracking mechanisms and the forces to be able to do that work. But I think going forward, that makes a lot of sense to me. If you compare the hourly rates, even the loaded hourly rates of our folks versus when we contract out, there's definitely a savings there. But right now, and I'm kind of focusing mostly on electrical because that's where most of the work is. If you look at that, there's a big potential for savings. We're just flat. We're not there yet. I mean, we're just not ready to do that yet. But I think it's a plan that makes sense.
So the budget that y'all are working on for 22, is this software an item in that capital budget?
I was just going to put it in the operating budget, not in the capital.
But it's going to be, but you
Yeah.
are forecasting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to put it in there as a professional services line item.
Okay.
And then we would have, there are a couple of different companies that do that type of work, and that work, you know, they for a city of our size can do it for a reasonable amount and get it done relatively quickly, because they've already done it for similar cities that have water, sewer, electric. So, yeah, it'll be in the 22. I mean, that's my hope, is to get it through the 22 budget.
That is a really good idea, and what we used to do is where I used to work, that's all I worked was construction force accounts. I'd go from job to job to job. I had a fixed budget, a fixed amount, and once that job was done, it was shut off and everything was closed out, and I had to have something to work on down the road, otherwise we laid people off.
Right.
So you're talking about a really good management tool that if, you know, with the amount of stuff we got going on right now, it would definitely help.
So you were up, sorry, like what you were talking, so we're looking at different aspects. So when do you think, next calendar year, sometime after January, that we might have a handle on what percentage of this 21 we're gonna be able to get completed by June 30th?
Of 21, I think as far as getting the completion on 21, we'd be able to do that in January. I have a good idea of.
Okay, well, we might need to do it. Well, if you can go through it quickly, then, because January is liable to be another longer meeting. But if you can tell us in January, that'd be great, to say that we look at what ones we're thinking are gonna be done and what's gonna roll over.
Yeah, I mean, some of them obviously are gonna roll over just because of the amount of time and the fact, I mean, because we just kicked off some of these 21 projects, I mean, they were just now starting to get the survey data done and getting the design done. I mean, they're definitely gonna roll into past June of this year. There's no doubt about that. When I look at these 21 projects, you know, outside of pole replacement, which, you know, that's something that Marvis has already jumped on and is moving forward on. These other projects are, you know, the circuit projects in San Felipe, they just take time to get the drawings, the surveying and the drawings done. So I wouldn't anticipate those three at a minimum, will not be done by June 30th. It's just not gonna happen.
Well, the San Felipe is the one that that's the design. And
Right.
You need the design.
So, yeah,
to
the
start on
design
the
will
20
likely be done.
Okay.
Yeah, the design will likely be done, but we won't, when you start talking, a typical design time is 6 to 12 months at best. By the time you get your surveying, you get your blue stakes, you get all your underground. So I think we would I think on San Felipe, we'd be able to get the design done, but we certainly wouldn't be jumping into construction before June.
Well, actually, but that's sort of the way that
That's the way that one's laid out, yeah.
That's what I understand, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's-
and we've tried to get a little better at kind of laying that out from both a design and construction and a cash flow perspective. So, it's a work in progress. It's not perfect for sure.
Yeah, because I think so the closer you get to, because I guess now the council is going to vote on it the 12th of January, is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's the date.
Tentative capital.
Yep.
And so I guess, yeah, maybe we should go over it, would be helpful. And then that way you would possibly could take something to the meeting, the briefing meeting that we've talked about in the past, if I
Yep.
understand correctly, be something that could be done.
Yep, and they brought up, and I won't say they, but at least at minimum, the mayor brought up the same concerns about getting these projects done, and I totally agree with them. We gotta put a plan together to help get these projects done, so.
Right.
What are they voting on the 12th there?
I believe they're voting on the tentative FY22 CIP. So it's not the final, it's the tentative.
Okay.
So I believe the final is in April, but I would need to go back and check that calendar. I don't have it in front of me.
I think the final is, okay, last
The
year.
final has to go to the state by June-ish.
So I think it's in May, but I think April last year, you're right, April was
Yeah.
when they wanted, it was like the middle of April, and then there was something in May as a final or something like
Yep,
that.
and I see Eileen staring at that schedule I handed out at last meeting, so she has it in front of her.
This says January 26th.
Okay, yeah, so,
Is that a workshop or is that the committee meeting, Eileen?
The council is supposed to tentatively approve the capital improvement plan on January 26th.
Okay, thanks, so that's the council meeting, I guess, then, okay.
yep.
It gives us, okay.
So that's pretty much for the ongoing, as far as a report that I have. If you have any other questions.
Well, I guess,
certainly.
whether we bring it up now or the other one, I guess, and I saw you nodding your head or having some thoughts when Fred had said something about the hangar and also the security of the aspects. So-
Yeah, and I don't know if he's aware, but we've taken over that building and stored almost everything in there, and it is pretty secure. So outside of the pigeons that can still get in there, but it's secure as far as people being able to break in and stuff like that. To answer his question with regards to video security, there's an ongoing project right now to update and upgrade video security equipment. Now, just like any other place, that's not a real time where people are watching screens to see if somebody's breaking in. It's all forensic for the most part. But we are going through an upgrade right now, and I know they're dealing with that on the general fund side as well. So, but to answer his question as far as that hangar, we have totally utilized it to our advantage. As long as we can, as eventually we may have to end up throwing something on the capital program for a new warehouse. But right now, that hangar's worked out perfect.
When you say taking it over, is that
It used
utilities
to be,
or?
yeah, that's
I got the
it's
impression it was
utilities.
just going to be the electric department.
It's pretty much just the electric. Yeah, if you go out there, and I'd be glad to take you out there. It's all electric. So most of the water and wastewater inventory is either at our shops or some of the larger stuff, pipes and stuff like that can be outside, is at the wastewater treatment plant. So, and that's secure. We don't really have any issues with people at that facility. So it may be something we have to think about in the future. But right now, that hangar is working out great. It used to be utilized by police and fire and storage of witness materials or whatever you call it. But we've pretty much, that stuff's all gone and been moved out. And yes, we have effectively taken it over. And it's working out great. There's a lot of that stuff, I mean, a lot of that material can be stored outdoors, but it's better if it's not. So, for years it's been stored outdoors. We've moved it all inside now. We had a lot of that material at the LA Water and Power Building. And so we've moved everything out of there, and Public Works has taken advantage of that we're out of there and we're using the hangar. So it's actually worked out from a city perspective. I think it's worked out great. So.
Yeah, I think if we can get the understanding that we have a secure location to store things and start that.
Yeah.
Greg has brought that up several times. I think
Yeah.
the sooner we can start purchasing items, the better off.
Yeah. Yep, and both Mike and Marvis have done a good job of maintaining their inventory and making sure we have certainly the equipment we need for an emergency in place, so that's all taken care of now. And then we've historically kind of sort of done just-in-time inventory, and now we actually have a built-up inventory that we've been able to do over the last couple of years, so that's helped that as well. This year's budget wasn't great for that because we cut the heck out of it for FY21, but once we get back to our normal operating budgets, we'll be able to maintain that inventory better.
Do we have a computerized inventory system, or is it Marv?
That's what I was talking about. So.
So is it in GIS and just doesn't have a good?
We have. So the inventory is somewhat in our our financial system, and it's a good financial system. And I'm not beating up on Munis or the fact that we have a good. And so the inventory is there, and that financial side of what you would call asset management is there. But from an operating perspective, we really need a computerized maintenance management system, and that's. It's kind of the difference from the finance side and the operating side. And so that's what I'm talking about when we want to implement this CMMS system. That's what we need to do from our perspective.
Any additional comments on the ongoing?
When we get to it, Dennis, I'll give you a hand on it, because one thing that we always forget in the industry is expiration dates on material. And as you input the stuff on a line item at the very end column, it should say expires by. And we've thrown out a lot of stuff because it was squirreled away somewhere where we couldn't find it. And then all of a sudden it's the compounds, the silicone, dielectric, and all that stuff has gone bad, and it just winds up going in the trash. So
Yep.
that's a line item that we have to have for each item we're putting in.
Yeah. Yes. Totally agree.
Just for clarity, it seems like what you're asking for is sort of a bookkeeping system, or what does this do that?
So
$30,000. I know it's a small amount of the total budget.
So George, to put it in perspective, we got guys out doing projects like every day, right? They're doing their maintenance management on whether it's a PRV rehab or manhole rehabilitation, and it's time and money, and we just we don't track it. So it's hard for me to come in here and say I need additional personnel. Because I don't have the data to defend whether I need somebody or not. If we're not keeping up with fire hydrant maintenance and manhole, rehabilitation and jetting, cleaning of the sewer system. And so it's all this stuff that you put into this maintenance system, and it actually kicks out your work orders specifically once you get all the data input. It kicks out your work orders for your staff, so they know ongoing what their jobs need to be every day. Right now, these guys or having to do it all manually.
Okay. Yeah, in my science world, we write our own codes and they're all available free, so it's sort of a, but this is different, I understand. Okay.
Yeah, and we're, we can certainly have CityWorks or one of those companies that makes that software come in and even present to this committee. I mean, it's not it's a industry-wide application that's used. There's more than one, right? There's 10. But there's one probably that's more applicable to a small city than a large city. And as you can imagine, you can put a ton of data into this stuff and get out whatever you put in. And sometimes maybe you do it overboard or more than you need. But right now we have nothing, so.
Well, that's the one point that you might want to consider is that try to get one that doesn't take you down a rabbit hole.
Right.
Because I remember when the Bureau, that one of the engineers bought a management program, and it took them longer to answer the questions than it did to populate it than it did to do the work,
Right.
I think. So sometimes they take it down they'll take it down several levels to get it done. So I guess it would take a little bit. Probably behoove you to look a little research to make sure.
And normally what I would suggest is you look at your performance measures across all the utilities and you start at a pretty high level so that you're not so down far in the weeds that you're not getting anything done. I mean, and most of those software guys have gotten that stuff figured out over time just based on their experience with working all these different cities. So hopefully that we wouldn't get too crazy.
Anybody else on this subject? Okay. So we'll see. I guess there's no reason to keep this one open. We'll go ahead and close this, and we'll go to the agenda item 2, discussion review of the 5-year capital plan. So Dennis, I guess you're up again.
Yeah, so, we went in detail over FY22. We've made the changes, my glasses, sorry, by moving the Red Mountain distribution line up to where it should have been to begin with. Thank you, Mr. Todd. And so what you see in front of you is the latest based on everything we know, based on the studies that have been done, based on what Brown and Caldwell did on the water and sewer side. And so this is kind of it. I mean, this is where it sits today. So we certainly appreciate and will take in advisement any comments or questions the committee has. Like I said, as far as 22 goes, we are right now already developing the scope of works to try to hit the July 1st, start moving on them. So that's our plan. We have had some discussion with City Council with using some of the valley cities, Henderson in the county, have already gone through statements of qualifications with professional engineering services. I think there's been some confusion or just information that hasn't been clear out there that you can't bid out professional services. It all has to be statement of qualifications, and so I think we're getting past that and realizing that we just need to get a list of qualified consultants that we can pick and get going. And I think that's going to be our plan. So we used, as an example, for the Arizona Street Feeder project, we selected a consultant off of the Clark County list of qualified consultants, and that's how we did it. There wasn't, it wasn't we made a phone call because we knew somebody. We went off of their list, and that's what we used for Arizona Street for construction management. So it's a really efficient way to do it because you can get 10 or 15 of these consultants on a list. You just go haul them. We'll basically give them a call and you negotiate their contract and you move forward. And so that's hopefully the plan moving forward, is to get this work done. So Because that's really, we can handle the construction side pretty good, even though Marvis is one guy and Mike's only one guy, and we don't have a ton of people in Public Works, but we're hoping to fill some of those positions soon, I hope. But really, where we get bogged down a little bit is just getting the projects actually out the door into construction. Once they're in construction, we're good. But that's been most of our challenges is getting them out the door.
So since you're limited on the staff in-house, can you go out, is there a limitation to how many projects you can have going on at one time?
Not really. I mean, between myself and the folks in Public Works, we can manage a lot, but really we're relying on the consultant to get the work done, and that's okay. That's something that's normal. It's not abnormal.
Because you're going to have the reason I ask that is you're going to get at 22, you're going to be bringing over the Buchanan to the BC sub is going to be on, basically a lot of that work's going to still be done in 22.
Right.
And then, so we're going to have, so I think that's the thing is we've been asking is that really need to see, so you're thinking we'll have it, what's going to roll over, so we'll need to, I guess you'll have, here's what's needed for the budgeted money that's in 22, but here's what's going to actually happen, here's what we actually think the money is going to be needed.
Yeah.
So you're going to be over 10 million most likely. Well, you're going to be probably pulling over most of the 10 million for the BC
For 21,
cap.
yeah.
And so that's 10 million alone.
Yep.
And then you'll be pulling some of the Arizona over, so that there's still quite a few of the 21 that won't get done in 21.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's helpful for us to do it. I think we would like to see it, and I think the city council should understand it. And I think that's one of the things that should be done in the workshops is so you understand what realistically we're planning to happen in 22 and most likely 23 now.
Yeah, and I'm not uncomfortable with what's shown in 22, to be honest with you. I mean, we've already actually got a start on like the substation 4 rebuild. Those plans are already partially, they were done even before me. Or is it 3? Yeah, 3. So we have a little bit of a heads up on that one. The Red Mountain distribution line rebuild, I think, is not going to be as complicated as hopefully it could be. And so, I'm not overly uncomfortable with how we get it. I'm more comfortable with getting the electrical project done than the water and sewer. Just because there's so many new projects that came out of the condition assessment, and we've got to get some consultants on board to get those done. So to me, that's the main goal for the next 6 months is to get moving on developing the scope of work, getting them ready to go July 1st with city council and moving.
If you have an idea on that in January, that'd be great. And then by January, February, March, then we can get some more going forward and having something for the final.
Yep, I think our goal is to get council to basically bless a consultant list for the different, whether it's electrical or water or sewer, and have these different firms. And if we can get that done in the next couple of months, we can start working on the scope of work, getting our contracts ready and hitting the road, hitting these things July 1. That's my goal.
But I think if we also show, because you're saying, okay, so 22 looks good, and by looking at 22, and we discussed it and put it in the report, that we thought it was doable and is needed. Now we just need to make sure that what's being carried forward isn't gonna slow that down or stop it. Yeah. And so that's some of the things that. Yep. So I think another workshop might help to discuss it. Because if I understand, George, you said did you get a chance to look at that the document yet, the engineering study?
He has not. I did call him yesterday. So, but you're welcome. If you want to come in like tomorrow,
Well, I
that'd
thought
work
with
great.
the COVID and everything, I mean, I do want to look at it, but I was like, I don't want to barge into your offices and start.
You can barge into my office and I can leave. Actually, you know how big my office is, so it's pretty comfortable in there.
I haven't forgotten, trust me.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just-
I'm assuming that to get a report out and with something that has any meaning to it, you're going to have a review of that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
no, I completely agree. Now
Yeah.
we're on the same wavelength.
Yep.
And-
So
But the question I was going to ask is, we're asked to annually review the 5-year CIP. So is that the report we're talking about, or what report?
Right, yes. So we're looking at the CIP, we're looking at the 5 report right now.
Right, so I was going to ask Dennis or you is, when is the best time? Again, it's all about time. When is it most useful for the council to get that from us?
for the 5-year,
Yes,
I would say in January, February latest.
okay, so we got to get moving
Because
on
kind
that.
of tie it to the final approval of the FY22 plan, which is whatever date was on that schedule.
Do they actually vote on the 5-year CIP, or?
You know, George, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. I think they actually approve, they kind of vote on the 5-year, but they only approve like the FY22. So they're not really voting, they're, it's
Okay.
kind of like they're blessing, and I might be screwing this up, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like they're blessing the 5-year plan, but they're
Okay.
really only approving FY22.
Yeah. No, I hadn't forgotten that document, trust me.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be in touch and I'll come and look at it.
Yep.
Thank
So,
you, appreciate that, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess that's the question is whether we have that then, was there a presentation in January? I can remember we had a full list, I can remember the whole problem, what we had in January.
We had anticipated a regular meeting, but not a workshop.
Correct.
But we could, I mean, we could still have a workshop.
Well, we could do the same thing we did in the past. We could either open with a workshop and then if it makes it easier and then close it and then have a voting aspect in January.
Yeah, so we can talk about that.
Did we,
but-
maybe at the end we can, or Greg and,
No, that's a good idea, as long as we start by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so we can get it done in a reasonable hour. Do we have a project manager picked for the Boulder City tap to Buchanan line?
Yes, so that's where we're using the Colorado River Commission guys to help us with that, so.
And who's gonna be paying his salary?
We will.
Out of administrative fund? Or project fund?
It comes out of the CIP.
Yeah, that's gonna put a little bit of a dent in it.
Yeah, but it's already included in that budget, so it should be good.
All right. And then do we have any other PMs for
And
any other
I
projects?
probably should mention this to the committee, because I'm not sure everybody knows. We have a memorandum of understanding where we can actually utilize Colorado River Commission staff at a really good rate to help us with some of these bigger projects. So right now, we are using a gentleman from CRC to help manage that BC tap to Buchanan on Adams project, and it's working out great because it takes the load off of Jim. He's the only guy doing all the engineering projects for the city. So that's been helpful. They won't be able to do trenching projects, stuff like that, like Arizona Straight Feeder. That's not what they do, but they would be able to help out with some of these future substation projects and some of that. So we plan on taking advantage of that as well. And they don't really hit us with a loaded rate because it's basically their salary they're getting paid at CRC, so.
Real quick, if something came up, the San Felipe project, I recommend that the city look at the possibility of splitting that project into 2 different items. One is a trenching project with conduit install and vaults. And the other one, if Marvis wants to take it under the CIP thing, cable pulling and termination. So we're not paying an electrical mechanic to dig ditches.
Yep.
We're
Yep, and that's how we do a lot of these underground ones.
Well, I haven't been impressed with the last one I saw from a company in town. It was pretty shabby, and then I watched our gentleman from the city try to pull cable in it and skin all the jacket and the insulation and shielding off because they didn't do a good conduit job.
Okay. Yep, we'll take that under advisement, absolutely.
do you have any more, because I have another, okay, let's just get, so what do we need for a report? What information do we need to have a report? And do we have something that we're gonna try to put out in January or in February? What does the committee suggest that we do so if we come in January, what do we need to do? Sure.
I've got a comment. I think we can do it before the last council meeting in January. I think we can get it together. But the problem we've got right now with it is the fact that the money's been moved around on FY22 on some of the projects, so we have to get that straightened out before we can actually write a decent report to where we're all in unison on it, I feel.
Yeah, and Greg, I think we can turn that around pretty quick, and having it just been finished at city council, so.
Well, Greg and I seem to have had some success in working together where he explains it to me and I try and type it up and then we submit it. We can do that unless, someone else wants to be in the loop. Someone has to get a draft to get something going. And
Well, the biggest thing I'm worried about on the report is the fuzzy math. If we can get the fuzzy math straightened out, then I got no problem pressing forward to get this report written out. The equipment and material that's needed and stuff, we'll have to get together and find out where we're at in ordering and what's coming in. Because Marvis, you told me that there was some stuff coming in for the Adams line. Some poles were coming in and some conductor. And I've got the initial scope the city wrote for what we're going to do. I think the primary conductor on that 69 kV might be a little undersized for what we got on the Boulder City tap ability to push out. Because we could help other agencies, by a backfeed if we needed to. Because we got 100 MVA sitting down there, just open air. No fan, no pumps, just open air. We got 100 MVA, and I don't think the conductor on that 69 is going to handle 100 MVA coming down Adams if we need it. Well, like I said, I've seen things go wonky real quick. So I'll push some numbers through and see what I get, and then I'll take and shoot it to you guys.
Sounds good.
So just to make sure I'm clear, so if everybody else is okay with the committee, then if George and there's no quorum there, so there's no problem with Greg and George working on a document and then submitting it to this. But the problem is we've only have 2 weeks. So you would to get a report that we could vote on, you'd have to see the engineering report, and then you'd have to. So I guess I'm assuming you'd put something similar to you did for the 22 through 26, and then we would want something as a comment to the council, I would think.
You could do a combo regular meeting workshop in the middle of January and still meet that deadline, and instead of having a meeting at the first Wednesday in January.
Well, the one report we did, back on, what was it, George the 8th? We've already got in queue and it's ready to be shot out to city council. So that's one off our plate. All I want to do is make sure that we get the numbers pretty close on what we're going to write for the CIP final blessing. So if we can get those numbers by Josh massaged around, or we make a column and we just add something in there that says, hey, this has been done this way. The reason I'm asking the question, and George and I think the committee agree, we're trying to become more transparent in what we're doing with our money, because there's a lot of people that are asking questions. I get bombarded every morning at 6 a.m. at the coffee cup with questions from these meetings and what's going on with our finances and what's going on with our projects. And because we didn't get that last report out to city council, the mayor made a comment that wound up in Thursday's paper about the franchise fee. And that wound up being a hot potato for me come Thursday morning, who read the paper on Wednesday night online. So that kind of caught me by surprise, because that wasn't what we discussed.
Yep.
no, and I might seem a bit like a hothead and a maniac, but if someone else wants to do this, I'm okay with it. I just think we should deliver these reports. I'm happy to do it, but if someone else wants to work with other people, I'm cool with it too. I'm trying to do what I saw as our obligations to the council, that we fulfill them. And so, but I'm happy to do it if no one else, if people are comfortable.
So I guess if I'm understanding correctly, then the deliverable from this committee is to have a report by, let's see, it has to actually, what is the Wednesday or Thursday before the 5th, the week beforehand, you have to have, so it's actually, it'd be right before New Year's. Does anybody have I don't have a calendar
That's what
handy.
I'm looking at.
So I think New Year's is Friday, the 1st is Friday, I think, so it'd be Wednesday the 30th, I think. So is that doable, or?
Pretty quick.
When's our next council meeting? January what?
It's January 12th, I believe.
So that would be the 12th. I feel comfortable with that, George. I don't have a problem with that week. I think we can meet that deadline the week before.
Okay.
So we'd have our regular meeting on the 5th.
Then you'll be able to get into with Dennis
Yeah.
on that meeting.
Yeah.
What document are we looking for the one for George to review?
That SASE document on the electrical side.
When was that done?
Oh, gosh, a long time ago.
2012.
Yeah, a long time ago.
2012. I think.
Okay, let me dig through my three-ring binders. I might have a copy of it
Okay,
also.
I got it, so you can just
All right.
come by.
It's because it was the reference document for
Yeah.
the CIP project. That's why I wanted to see it.
Yep.
And
No,
just for the record, I'm fully aware we're advisory. So our responsibility is to get these reports to the council, whether they read them or not. That's not, that's fine with me, but then we've done our job, the
Yep.
way I see it.
And the next week is perfect. Just come over anytime, so we can make that work. So.
Well, I guess to make it so we're clear on this too, I think so. The easiest way to do that is to go ahead and then we'll put it as a deliverable. So if we have a workshop on the 5th and we do a regular meeting, so we do something similar to what we did before. We open up workshop, close it, and have any voting that we needed. I guess because we'd have to vote on the deal. Then send that to make sure we go over the deliverables, send it to the council that would be available to them before the council meeting to discuss, as well as if it wants to be put on the agenda or not.
Yeah, and that's still the tentative, so there's still some time even after that if there's any modifications or anything we come up with that needs to be modified.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, no, I like that schedule. I'd rather get.
Yeah, I agree. The nuts and bolts have to work otherwise.
Yeah.
But I think that sets up kind of a dialogue with the council where we're fulfilling our function rather than saying, everything 100%. Or that's my sense of what the whole purpose of this committee is.
So we'll do so you guys are writing it then and know what you'll need for the meeting, and then just make sure that the city, if you get it sent to the city, and if there's anything that can be sent out or ahead of time, I guess if you let the rest of us know that there is information needed, as long as we don't discuss it, we can
Right.
do something like that.
Yep.
Let's make sure that last document we did and we all agreed to on our formal meeting gets shot out tonight to city council, and that gets one off our plate, okay? So that's that one.
Yep.
And then we'll get the other one working really quick, and we'll get that one cranked out pretty fast. I don't think it's gonna be that difficult. We just need city to give us the numbers. So where we can notify city council, even though you're gonna do it, but that the committee is in unison with the number shift and the money shift and the reason why. It's like the Arizona Street. I love it. Put everything together in one basket, dig the trenches and get it done, and then let's get done and get out of there. Because that's going to be a bottleneck when we come to start swinging stations over to get them out of service. And I would implore that, if possible, that the committee can look at the sketches and drawings for the sub-3 rebuild and the possibility on the Adams line.
Yep.
I kind of know what's going to happen. I kind of know what we have to pick up in the way of load and everything else, but I want to make darn certain we only have to do it once. We don't want to have to go back and do it again.
Yeah, you and me both.
So actually, Greg, we have two reports. Remember, so both of them, we have this report that's actually part of the packet, and that was just make sure there's no confusion on why that's there. So just bring that up in a minute. So we have that one, but we also have the other report that has to be sent out also. So there's two reports that need to be sent out. Thank you.
And just to be 100%, I think we should put them on the agenda and present them to council, like one member. I'm happy to do it if no one else wants to do it, but that'll put my mind at ease that it gets done, that we don't say, oh, I forgot again, sorry, that one of us stands there and says, you guys got any questions? We do exist, we've done this.
Right, so just make sure I'm clear, you want to put it on the city council agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah,
If they have no questions, fine, but that we're clear that they got the report, and yeah.
Okay.
I won't be here on the 12th, but, so I guess if you want to do it, and if that's what the rest of this committee wants.
I'm happy to do it. If the committee disagrees, I respect their judgment.
No, I think that'd be a good idea.
All right. Okay.
Got it?
Okay, so I guess the last, so was there any other, I think I cut you off before the, was it on the water or the sewer, was there any additional things on that?
No, I don't think so.
But I guess you said you had some concerns on getting everything done, so that you're gonna be able to have that information in January?
Yeah, I think we'll have a plan for, at least for this committee to take a look at.
Okay.
Between what we want to do with Public Works and what we want to take, external and do out of, with consulting firms and getting this stuff rolling, so.
Okay, so the report, that was a confusion, the reason the report was put in this document, so what we had voted on?
Yeah, that was just my confusion, so you guys are fine. We'll get that stuff out of here today, so.
Okay. Let's see, we lost Greg, and the next one's pretty important going forward.
We can take a 5-minute break. No? Oh, no, she doesn't want a 5-minute break.
Well, actually, we do need it. I need everybody here for this next portion. Huh? Okay, was there any other comments on the capital improvement plan?
I just want to clarify the report that George and Greg are going to write is on the 5-year plan. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'll be right back too.
Okay, as Greg's getting back to his seat, then let me start with, so we're closing out so any more comments on the 5-year capital review? And so then does that get you started, George, with the review and our obligation? So I know that obligation won't be met until we actually get it done, but that's our intent, is to keep moving forward the best we can.
Yeah, I think certainly for me, and again, I don't want to steamroller the others, but that's how I see it. I was telling Joshua, I emailed him, I said, hopefully we can move to where we're less micromanaging and, when there's a level of trust and we can meet, 3 times a year once there's a level of confidence that, everything's, but yeah. Anyway, yes, the answer is yes.
Good. Okay, so we're into the, the third then one, the discussion review of the utility rate. So I guess there was some confusion, and if I didn't make things clear at the last meeting, again, we ended quickly, so I wasn't able to wrap it up, so maybe I thought I said something that I did not. My intent was to make the comments, so basically what I was trying to do was the same exact thing we just talked about now, is that I would take the report, I would make comments to it, bring it, send it to the city, have it put so the public can see it, we can discuss it, and go forward. So it was a starting point. It was not to be my document, it was just to be everybody's. So that being said, my idea was to bring up that document, and everything can be deleted, can be added to, whatever, but it was a starting point instead of having the person typing it out, trying to understand exactly what we're doing. So that's what I would suggest we do, is for this rest of the meeting, we take the document with the comments, bring it up on the screen, and then see what everybody wants to do. I'd like to go page by page. But if anybody else has a different way of doing it, I'm happy to hear it.
Well, inevitably. Well, I'm happy to do that, but I'd like to do something else also, because I think it's hard to see a narrative with the way you've got sort of 5 utilities going in parallel in this document. And I had a thing where I tried to make a narrative for just one of the electric utilities. And for me, I think the study is a little bit beyond being fixed by comments. I think there are too many things that are wrong in it, and methodologies and things that make no sense. So I can either give those comments ahead of time, but they're not the kind of comments where you can go, well, I want to change this comma, to FY 22, 26. I think there are structural problems with the study. So I can either do that now or do that at the end. I don't mind.
You have a document that you can give to Josh?
Not really. I have comments that I want to make about but they're not comments like change this and that. It's a sort of criticism of the methods and the numbers. The numbers are, again, it's not a trustworthy study. I don't think Raftellus they're not competent.
What I'm asking for is, you said you put something together. So is this something that Josh can put on the screen and we can all review? And I don't have a problem with that as long as the committee is. I still think we want the comments, because that's the reason I did that. That's what I'm used to doing when I worked with the government. We did the comments on the document, and we knew where we were at.
I can tell you what I want to say about the document. I mean, I can refer to the specific tables. That's why I was worried about having 2 documents, because I don't know if you've changed the table numbers and the pages and the numbers, and so I'm referring to the original document.
The original document is what he made comments on. Nothing's been changed on that document. That is the original document. We can add to it, and if we disagree with the comments that are made by the groups that want to make comments, we can subtract the comments out of the column bar.
I have no problem with that. What I'm saying is you're going to lose the narrative. If you look at just one utility, you can see how things went off the rails. If you go through them 5 in parallel, you get kind of lost. And so I'm not objecting to any of that, but I'm saying I want to also present my way. And it's just referring to the table. It's very simple. Just go to this table, and I'll tell you what the problem is.
Well, and so it can be worked as we go through the document. We'll bring up that table, and
because you lose the narrative. You're like, okay, we were talking about electric, and then we're talking about this. So I'd rather do it in one go, so you can see what goes wrong. There's a logical flaw in this document, in the way they're doing it. They're assuming what they're trying to prove, and you can't do that. It doesn't work. So if you just go with comments, you're not going to understand that. All I'm interested in are the tables, lining up the tables for the electric. I don't mind what you've done. I don't object to anything you've done. I'm just saying, if I put my comments in piecemeal, you won't understand what I'm talking about.
Okay, but we're trying to understand, what document do you have that we can follow?
Just the original document.
But that's what we're doing the same thing.
But I want to do it in an order where we just follow through on the electric.
Okay, well, let's.
He's asking for a clean Raftellus document. That's all he wants.
All I'm asking is for like 5-10 minutes just to give my views.
Do we have a clean document we can put up on the screen?
Yeah, it's on the packet.
Okay, then, yeah.
On the screens?
Just give me 5 minutes to tell my story, and then, because I think so let's go to table 4. So I've focused on the electric because it's, I've got a day job and it's overwhelming for me, and I'm new to all this. It's on page 10.
Yeah, Josh, I just found out if you do a control, I don't know if you're familiar, if you do a control G, you can do a go to. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. So if you do a control G, so it should be like on page 11 or so, because they're not the same numbers.
Exactly. I went by Raftellus. That's my point. I went by the numbers in the original document. So.
No, but the document is paged that way, but it's not that way. You got the cover letter and all that beforehand, so that's why it's different.
Okay, well.
It's the number 10 is on the report.
Right.
But they've got other pages in front of it. So when you say go to a page in the Word document, it's different.
But I think it's important just to understand conceptually what's going off the rails with this study, in my opinion. I didn't realize it was going to be that difficult. Oh, there we are. What's that, table 3? Table 4 I want. There we go. Yeah. So, again, the idea is, well, let's just comment. No, the whole methodology is wrong. They're claiming, again, that they can predict to 1 kilowatt hour precision what the residential usage will be in 2026. And I think that's nonsense. That means they don't understand precision and accuracy. They told the council at the workshop that this had been solved, and I was sort of nitpicking. And then they doubled down again. There's no way you can predict, 5 years ahead of time to the kilowatt hour what the usage would be. So that's just a comment that I wanted to make. But then onwards to table 33. Oh, wait a second, sorry. Table 12, sorry, table 12. Because there's a logic to this. Are we on table 12? Yeah, thank you. Okay. So my problem with table 12 is, first of all, it puts in a franchise fee, but the franchise fee is based on the cost of service. So how can you use the cost of service in order to calculate the cost of service? There's a logical inconsistency there. Doesn't make any sense. They have to know the cost of service ahead of time in order to compute the franchise fee. That's what Mrs. Pelletier said to me. And if you do it from I write computer programs. If you do it that way, you're just going to go round in circles. So, but secondly, as Mr. Volz pointed out, the franchise fee was unanimously rejected by the UAC, but every subsequent table depends on the franchise fee. So the whole analysis is invalid. And that's something you can't resolve by going through comma by the document. The logic of the document is flawed because we've agreed we're not going to do a franchise fee. So therefore, there's a structural failure of the document from my perspective. And finally, just a comment, the admin costs for the electric utility when you add all these fees up is not far from $3 million, which is equivalent to the budget of the entire UNLV physics department, which would be 20 full-time faculty and 5 full-time staff. And I can't believe that to run an electric utility, it takes 20 professors working full-time and 5 staff. The numbers, to me, do not make sense. So, but anyway, there's that inconsistency. So then I move on to table 33. So I'm just focusing on the electric. We're getting there. Then we can go back to do whatever Larry wants. It's on page 36, but I don't know where that is in the word numbering. Table 33, the O&M functionalization. You don't really need to see the table, actually, but the point is, where are the data on which this is based? The numbers sort of appear out of thin air. They say it's based on capital investment, but there's no source document. Where did this come from? So again, it's not trustworthy. It's not, reliable. And the data aren't, anyway. So there's no explanation there of how they did this. At least that satisfies me.
Well, I agree with you, George, that it is. They do state, if you looked at the table above that, the wordage above it, that I believe they're saying a lot of this is based on gross plant investment. So the table, the paragraph 4.3.1, somewhat explains it, but that does not show you the detail.
Right. That's my point.
That is completely.
I know
true.
I think you caught that too, to your credit, or at least we agree.
So there's a lot of things but I guess one thing I wanted to state too, so there again, if somebody's got a different way, what I'm thinking is that we look at how to make this thing as clear and precise as we can. We have to also remember that a lot of these numbers are what the city gave them, and we'll probably have to go over those once the final report's done and ask the city finance or somebody to come in and please explain that to them, because most of especially for 22, if I understand correctly, is from the city. They didn't calculate those numbers. They calculated some of the outer numbers, but not that number. So today it doesn't help. It's not going to help us to analyze those numbers because that's what the city gave them.
Well, anyway, let me just finish my story. Whether it's helpful or not is for people to determine.
Okay.
So let's go to table 42. I'm getting there. I'm almost done. 42, the allocation to cost drivers. Again, I don't understand the basis they don't give a justification for doing this. Why are the substations driven by, non-coincident peak demand? And, and so on and so forth. So I'd like to see a justification for that. That's not something the city can tell us. That's a sort of determination that they made without any real explanation. But my real problem is with table 45. Just to illustrate that, we're not here to insult each other, but again, I don't think these guys are competent, and I'd like to illustrate that with the streetlights. So for the streetlights, to give the annual usage on table 45, page 43, yeah. So they say 1,752,000 kilowatt hours. But the streetlights aren't metered. So that creates the illusion that that's a real number. Well, no, it isn't. We don't know what the annual usage of the streetlights is.
Right.
We know, so they say, okay, we have 800 100-watt light bulbs. Again, with no source document of where they got that number. 800 150-watt light bulbs. Then they calculate the average annual usage by dividing by the number of hours in the year, and they get this number of 200 kilowatts. Then they say the load factor is 100%. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know if all the lights come on at once. And then they say the coincident peak demand is 200 kilowatts. Well, that can't be true. And so my analogy is if you're driving your car, and I drive my car 10,000 miles, then I don't get the speed of the car by dividing by the number of hours in the year, which is roughly 9,000. So it's 10,000 divided by 9,000. I'm driving my car at 1 mile an hour, according to Ref Tellis. So they don't understand rates. If you want the coincident peak demand, you divide by the number of hours the lights are actually on, which is half the time. So the coincident peak demand would be 400 kilowatts, not 200 kilowatts. But then the second thing they haven't noticed is that it's actually, the streetlights are not on during the day. The peak demand happens typically in July in the afternoon when people come home from work on a very hot day, they switch everything on, and the demand goes up to 50 megawatts. And the coincident peak demand is the contribution of all these different things to that peak demand, but the lights aren't even on. So the coincident peak demand is 0, not 200 kilowatts or 400 kilowatts. And so I think this work is just it's not fixable. That's the point I'm trying to make. You want to go over every table at that level of detail. And so, but you might say we don't care about the streetlights because, they're 1% of the demand. Okay, they screwed it up, who cares? But let's look at residential where they do the load factors. That's still the same table. They give us the load factors to 1,000th of 1% accuracy. They think they know the load factor to an incredible precision. Of course, either they know something I do or they do. It's not credible. And they calculated the load factor, again, is that peak demand is how much electricity was used in an hour on a July afternoon. Well, we don't know. We don't read the residential meters every hour. So we only have the monthly usage. But we don't even know that because we don't read all the meters on the 31st of the month. We read some of them, for May on the 1st of May. And what Mr. Dwyer told me is all of that is allocated to May. If it's read on the 1st of May, we consider that May usage. But of course, all of that usage was in April. If the meter's read on the 1st of June, we consider all of that usage as June usage. So there are big uncertainties, or what are the uncertainties in the monthly usage, which they then scale up to get the load factor to this absurd precision. So if Ned was here, he'd say, well, I'm not an expert and I should just believe everything and stop asking questions. So let's turn to the expert. I think Mr. Dwyer had a good handle on what he was doing. And if you look at his report, the Integrated Resource Plan, he says the load factor for residential is 2.9 to 1 for feeders dominated by residential loads, and about 2 to 1 for feeders dominated by commercial loads. So that means that the load factor is 50% for commercial, not 35%. That's a 15% difference between two reports and a number that they compute to an accuracy of 1,000th of 1%. So my point is these guys, we're not here to insult each other again, but they're not competent. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand rates. They don't understand that if you want to calculate power, you divide energy by the amount of time the thing was on. They haven't compared the numbers to other numbers. They're cited to much too high accuracy. And you might say, again, it doesn't matter, they get the numbers right in the end. So, but like if you do for electricity, if you go to cost of service, wherever that is, what they say is the electricity cost of service for the streetlights is $33,000. for 1.7 million kilowatt hours. So $33,000 is 3.4 million cents, and so cents per kilowatt hour is 2 cents per kilowatt hour. The cost of service for the streetlights is less than the cost of buying the electricity. Well, that can't be true. You have to buy the electricity in order to use it. So if you do this kind of gobbledygook, you come up with numbers that make no sense. And that's the point I wanted to make before we do it Larry's way and go over, thing by thing, is the whole thing, the methodology is incoherent. You can't assume what you're trying to prove. The actual details in the tables make no sense. And I think this thing is beyond fixing. I think we'd be better off us putting our own rate study together, where I think we know what we're doing. We have enough knowledge here. And again, you might say, well, it doesn't matter, they're experts and we should go with experts. But the point is, the recommendation is unambiguous from this thing, that they want to raise the rates. That's my understanding. They've stated it several times in the report. And so as a conclusion, and you can all take your breath, is what I noticed is that when you raise the electricity costs, they unfairly target the poorest people. And so for a median income of $55,000, if you go to, say, $20,000, which is still above the threshold of assistance, if you're making $20,000 a year, you don't get assistance from the state for paying your utility bills. The amount of money you spend on energy in your household is about 20% of your income. And so that's why I'm not happy with this report. It's targeting, I think, unfairly the poorest segments of our community who don't have a voice on this committee. And that's why I'm taking your time. I don't want to, stand on my soapbox. But if you're going to do that, if we're going to do that, we better be damn sure we got our numbers right. And for my money, these guys did not get their numbers right, and this report is not trustworthy. And that's my piece. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, the major comment I guess I would have is that the city, unless I'm misunderstanding something, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, there has to be a report. And so the one thing is that the Raffatilis did not give us enough time to help with that. So that part I agree with. We got the one technical report beforehand, and so there wasn't really an interaction of what was expected as a final product. We received this, and really there wasn't anything that we could do to say we want to change it completely. So I guess the question I have, George, is do you have a suggestion for them, a report for them to submit? If you don't think we can fix it, what do you suggest they do?
I suggest they submit what they have, because what I'm worried is if we come up with suggestions, they're going to charge us another, $300,000 to fix it, because to fix this thing, in my opinion, would be a lot of work. And, then they're going to start the meter running. And it's like, so I'd say let them submit it as is, and I think the council's going to ignore this, is my bet. They don't want the franchise fee. This is based on a franchise fee, so the whole thing's out of the window. But why throw good money after bad and tell them, okay, we'll pay you consultant money, another $200,000 to fix this thing? I don't think it's fixable.
I guess I'll put my 2 cents in and ask everybody again. I believe we have an obligation. We stated we would give our comments on the report within 4 weeks, so that's why I'm pushing to have something done by the end of today. This is the 4-week period, and that's what we normally do most of the time when you're working with something. I have a lot of questions and a lot of problems with a lot of the way things were done myself, but at the same time, we can't ask them to change it. And I guess that's what I was trying to get from Dennis, is I don't believe there is, to ask them to put a separate report and sit down and work on the report, I don't see that that's feasible. Am I missing something, Dennis?
No, I think you're pretty accurate. I mean, it's their report, it's their work that they've crunched out. And obviously, they'll take comments under consideration. We've already sent them yours, and they're taking those under consideration, and they'll take everybody else's under consideration who submits them as well. I don't think I'm sitting here saying they won't necessarily. I mean, I think if they agree and concur, they will change some of what's in the report. and there's some items they might not. I mean, I can't speak for them. So the best thing in my mind is that we do exactly what you've already done, Chairman, is submit them in writing, get them to them. They can respond appropriately and make changes as they see fit, and then we get the report finalized. I mean, I understand that folks don't understand with the franchise fee, but that came out of the fact that the reality is the wholesale rates for water and sewer are basically subsidized for the city facilities. And in order to fix that, through the cost of service, the general fund would have to pay the retail rate, and they don't. And that's okay. That's a city policy. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you wanted to fix that, the only way you could do that is to have the general fund pay more, and then the general fund's got to have revenue to pay for that. So that's where the franchise fee came from. So it's definitely something that nobody has to agree with. It was just a solution to a potential problem that wasn't necessarily the consultants. It was city staff working with the consultant on how do you fix this. You don't have to fix the cost of service differential.
But it assumes the rates. The franchise fee assumes what it's trying to prove, and it's actually not equal to those rates. It's quite a bit higher than the amount that just for the electricity. And so...
Well, I'm talking about water. Water was the big one.
Okay, well, I'm focused on the electric.
Yeah, the electric was actually the smaller part of that. So.
Well, it may be small, but you're asking for more money than just the cost of electricity, and you're including it in the cost of service, which doesn't make any sense, as I've explained. So it's not logically... but, we can go around in circles.
Right,
Yeah.
and I'm not suggesting we go around in circles at all. I'm just saying... clearly the committee doesn't agree with that concept. That's perfectly okay. I mean, it is what it is as it exists today. It's not necessarily a problem or problematic. The consultant isn't going to go crazy if we don't go forward with their recommendations. That's just what they came up with. So.
Well, I think
obviously for this committee to consider and discuss and debate and figure out what to do with. So
I would think it would still be worth the time to go over the document and so what we've done, then we've done our part to, so like I said, I think what we're trying to do is do with what they gave us, because part of the big issue is that to me, it looks like the report sort of says the city's procedures are not correct, and they're trying to fix it. And instead of giving us a reason, instead of telling this has its reason, it's just saying let's fix it. So that part of it I agree with. So I think the best thing to do is try to make it clear and precise to what documents, the numbers they were given. Now the cost of service is their own document. But I think what we can do is say, okay, give us the report. Here's how we would appreciate you to make it better. And then we go in we start doing workshops, and we have a document to start with. If you want to change and give some ways to do it differently, we can do that in a different thing. But they have to turn something in. I'd prefer to have a comment on something better than to say, okay, here, we'll take this draft and not, because there can't be that much of additional charge. It should be within the reasonable cost of the overall amount. They can't charge us another $200,000 just to say we're going to fix the draft to the final. If we just make the best changes we can.
And I'll just say this kind of as my last comments, I guess, with regards to this study as a whole. In general, the consultant has recommended that you can reduce the energy rate by 3%. And yes, they have. And in general, you can reduce the water service charge by $10 for a 3/4 to 1 inch meter. And then accordingly, that adjusts the other size meters. So that doesn't change with regards to anything else in this study outside of addressing the cost of service. That we know, based on what they've done here, is that we have sufficient revenues to cover operating and maintenance, and we have sufficient revenues to cover capital. To me, that's the most important thing. But, that's for you guys to consider, so.
Yeah, I think the one thing, George, is what you're trying to refer to is I have a major problem that the cost of service was only done by one aspect, was only one option. And so the way they looked at it, there's probably several ways that we looked at it. And then the problem we have is that their recommendation is just 3 recommendations. It's either do it in 1 year, do it in 4 years, or don't do it at all. Now, the rate study that was done in 2012 did do, and I would see in my comments, did look at the cost of service. It was only cost of service for electrical, but it was a cost of service study. And it said, yes, they're probably commercial is paying a little more than they should, but they said you can do it in 5% or you can do it in a 10% aspect. They gave a option A and an option B. That is one of the flaws in this report, but we're too late down the road. We can't really ask them to redo it. That would be additional money. So I think what we do is we sort of maybe do a hybrid of what you and I are both saying, is that we say, okay, let's get this document, let's do it the best we can, go through the comments, and then down the road, we use the document and say we agree or disagree as a tool. Great. Thank you, Greg. Yes, that's what I would try to say.
I have no problem. I was never trying to negate your approach. I was just trying to emphasize my approach.
But the thing is, we have a lot of specialty individuals on this committee, and everybody has a specialty in a certain field. The problem is, I remember the 2016 one, and it was not this detailed, okay? And most of this information was given by the city to the people doing this study. For example, the one that's, like you were just saying, the streetlights. The streetlights are being changed to LED at a pretty rapid rate. So that number they're given on the chart, the table for streetlights, is wrong, just to begin with, right out the gate. And then they've also changed a lot of correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, didn't they change a lot of the lights in the ball fields to LED?
Some, but
Yeah,
mostly it's just been, we've been getting, actually getting funding from RTC to change out the streetlights.
Yeah, and
that's
so
free money.
so that's free money that we're getting, but yet we're still looking at it as an incandescent light bulb or a metal halide or a low pressure sodium.
Right.
They're getting phased out, so that those 2 line items on that chart are wrong. So we already know we got problems, but this is just a start to get us going, because this study was almost started when we got pulled in to become the committee. And that's what I'm trying to get a handle on, because I'm looking at this stuff. I don't feel comfortable reducing the water rates to the industrial and commercial customers as to what this cost analysis in this report states. I think we need to take and just get our residential rates reduced. We can take and do the $10 reduction on the water rates for commercial and industrial, with the caveat that we say we're looking at this on down the road to see if we can come up with a better idea. Because everybody here knows that a little 1-inch line coming into a house is a heck of a lot easier to work on than an 8-inch or 12-inch line going into a commercial facility. So you've got to understand, you've got to have the material on inventory if something breaks. That includes a water meter that's pretty doggone expensive. They're $8,000 to $10,000 for a 8-inch water meter. Okay, so there is a cost of service involved in serving and keeping that customer running, but not a reduction to the rate where this report is recommending. I feel we're going to get hurt really bad on that. I think we need to look at it further as a committee.
I had a comment with Dennis, because I don't agree. They're not proposing to lower the rates. They're proposing to increase the rates. If you look at their table, whatever it's table 5 or something, FY22 0.0878, FY26 0.1. That's an increase in electric rates. It's not a decrease. So to FY26, they're proposing to increase the residential rates, which would be an additional $500 basically to all the residents. That's not a decrease. There's no way that's a decrease.
Well, I think, George, the thing is, the committee has not agreed to a increase.
I know that.
And so I think, and that's one thing we could do, is we could try to state is that we do not necessarily agree with this report, But this is the best we can do these are our comments, the best we can do to clarify and to understand the tables and to make the tables with the data they were giving, or we can understand.
I have absolutely no objection to going over your comments at all.
Okay, but maybe that isn't something this, because I don't agree with the cost of service either. I don't think it's, and that's where the increase is coming from, George, is the cost of service. And so if we don't agree with the cost of service, then there is not an increase.
But it goes, that's why I was blathering about these load factors, because they do it from the load factors. That's where it all comes from, and the load factors are wrongly calculated, in my opinion.
And I don't like the cost of service either, so basically, but I think, again, today to get the thing going, so I think the discussion we had is good now. We got to just be careful on analyzing some of the stuff now, because it isn't, there is no additional time for them to go back and do anything different, except for clean up what we can try to clean up. And then, so by using this as a tool, first off, they have to do a report. I'd prefer to see a better report than not. Then we go back, and it doesn't mean that by accepting the report, we agree to it. So then we just say, okay, then we start as best we can and we start putting out agenda items. How are we going to go over the report, and how do we go through it? So, we stated that's the reason we did the first report that we're going to get out tonight. One of the two is the thing is that we just try to pick the low fruit. So we said, let's do the 3%, let's do the $10, and I totally agree with Greg. It's not $10 in a percentage, it's the $10, and we figure out what to do from there. Because by using the $10 and their percentage, they're taking 14%, and $10 reduction doesn't do that. So again, there are situations here that we can clean up a little bit, and we can point to it by saying, okay, make sure everybody understands what was done. And then I guess I would ask too, is this what the city was expecting? So, because this doesn't, from what I can tell, and I think I forgot to bring my copy, is that this doesn't match the deliverables 100%, what they were contracted to do.
In my experience, this is pretty much what I would typically expect from a rate consultant, whether it's Reftalis or HDR or anybody else, for what we paid for them.
Okay. So yeah, so before we go over, so I'd prefer to go over the document. So does anybody else have any concerns? Eileen, you're really good at documentation. Is there a way that you'd like to do this differently?
I don't see any problem going through the document and making suggestions to their wording or whatever. We don't have to, when we make our recommendation to council, we don't have to agree with the document. Right now, we're just getting back to Reftalis on suggestions on how to improve their document. Not that we agree with it.
How to clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because George, you were talking about tables on electrical. I thought you were going to go after like table 6, which is water usage forecast. I figured that was your hot potato. And they've got the raw water and potable water all combined on one table. And it's like, it makes no sense. And if you want to take, and if they use that document and that table as a water forecast for consumption per person, I don't know anybody in Boulder City that's drinking raw water.
Well, it took me a lot of time to do the electric, because I don't do this for a living, and, so I sort of ran out of gas at that point, but yeah.
Okay, so, unless there's any other major, because I think if we go through it, we can get through we can see some of the aspects, and so instead of going over major comments first, I think as we go through the document, we can see some of the things that we might want to fix or have issues with. So maybe it's just as clean to go through the start in the beginning. And
You want to start where?
let me make sure I got my document right. So can you bring up mine or the comments, the commented? Okay. But I didn't try to do anything with the table of contents or anything like that. Does anybody? I don't know if there's any way to make it better. I didn't take the time to do that. Does anybody have any comments on the? My first start's an executive summary. Does anybody else have anything before that?
No.
Okay, so let's go okay. So my concern is let me start here with my concern and then see how, and if it's, people agree that if it's commented properly or not. So I guess, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so the reason I highlighted design is that, I don't know if people have had too much time to read it, but they basically had the financial planning, my comments, excuse me. Financial planning, cost of service, and rate design study is what their proposal states. Now you go right down below, and it says financial plans, cost of service analysis, and rate recommendations. Well, the rate recommendations isn't the same as the rate design. Now that's what they did, so maybe, I'm not sure if in this case we go with rate, we leave their recommendations or we're not, but what I'm trying to do is comment, is to find a way that we can say that that this really isn't what you said you were going to do. The recommendation isn't really what you said. Not majorly harp on it. I'm harping on it now so I can get it out of the way for the rest of the document. But sort of flow through that to say, okay, you said you were going to do a design, you gave recommendations, but anywhere that you say what you were supposed to do, let's say design, and what they are going to do, let's say recommendations. So in this case, it says rate recommendations, which can improve alignment between the cost of providing service to each customer class. And so in this case, I believe it should be rate design because that's what they say they should have been doing. So then my comment here, see, can you, so that's the reason I highlighted design, was just to show that the design was what they stated, but it doesn't flow. And so, okay, so the comment on, based on design, Josh, can you, okay, there you go, thanks. So the recommendations are related to the cost of service analysis, not, and I guess I missed a space there, not any rate design study as indicated above. So is that a comment we want to keep, or does it help anything? It was a starting point for me to explain why I was looking at it like it, why I put design in there.
Yeah, the blue highlighter, is what you're saying it should say, and that's based upon the study background document wording that's up at the top. So they've just misspoken. So recommendations should be removed, design should be left.
So do you think the comment helps?
I think it stays consistent with the study background format. In other words, that's what they were hired to do.
Okay. So the
I agree with that. But the thing is that that's what we're doing. We're actually proofing their document for final publication.
Correct. So I guess, Josh, then if see, Eileen, do you have any? Because like I said, I'm going to look for you. You have to have a really good with documents also. So I think just if we put a space, Josh, put a space in with between not and any. Okay, did anybody else have any comments or anything else on that first for the study background?
I think you've put a finger on precisely the key issue. Are they or are they not making recommendations? And it's hard to pin them down, and at the workshop, I was like, they're making recommendations, and then they say, no, we're not. And so I think it's good to do what you're doing there.
Now, the second thing I was doing, I went over this several different times. So if we go now to key findings, and it's being picky, but I've talked to different people, and I've heard in several meetings, nobody really understands fiscal year. I shouldn't say it that way, but a lot of people are confused with it. And I've very seldom seen that you start a document by the fiscal year end, though. I've really hardly ever seen that. So I was trying to use an example, and then I guess I would suggest we delete their fiscal year, unless we say with one thing, you do fiscal year 6, it would be, this study would be actually 6/30/21 and would end in 6/30/26. So it would be fiscal year and then fiscal year ending, if you want to do the exact 5-year period. But trying to get the fiscal, so I think we need 2 comments. we need to state that what actually is a fiscal year. It's 2021 to 2022. It's July 1st of 2021 to June 30th, 2022. So then whether we correct the one statement, and theirs is not incorrect, it's just confusing. So I think a way to do it that I did not do was that we'd say fiscal year 6/30/21 to fiscal year end, and you might need to we assume it's in, but I'm not sure it's stated. It's not stated there. It's best to spell it out to fiscal year 6/30/2026. Again, most of my comments won't be this detailed, but I'm just trying to get a starting point on most of this.
Yeah, you should use the full verbiage or the full word fiscal year ending or FY fiscal year, and then explain what that fiscal year is. I have trouble even saying that word. And then, and then through FY 2026, but that should also have a month and a day. So in other words, they know that FY 2026 is this day and date and time. So that needs more explanation. I agree with that.
So Josh, why don't we just clean, so right there was the first FYE, that's in parentheses, so do we spell that one out first, or do we try to spell it, because, well, actually the first one I would delete the E, so there in print, yeah, I'd delete the E there, and then I would go and I'd put, instead of 2022, I'd put it as 2021. And then the 2 is correct, because then we're going to the fiscal year end of 6/30. No, this is, okay, no, it's actually 7/1/2001, so I'm sorry, because we're doing fiscal year beginning 7/1, so the other one, that one's correct, 6/30 is correct, the first 6/30.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Larry. Are we making the changes to the document real time, or are we just making the comments?
I would suggest if we think it would be better to make the changes to show them what we think. Am I missing something?
I don't know. I guess in my mind, if we should be making the comments, and it's up to them to do the work.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we're paying for them to do the work.
Right.
I think we ought to just take and look at what you've done on your copy.
And they have that because we sent it to them.
And by accident. And we ought to just take and keep going through here and just keep looking at the comments. I don't think we should change their document, because now you've messed with their rough draft. And to go through it, they're gonna have to go through each line item, where if they can pick up the comments on the right side and look at what you're saying, they can then understand what we're trying to do. And then the blue, the highlighted blue shows what we're trying to do. And as long as we go through this and we agree to it, I'd say we just keep scrolling down the pages and make sure we read it and we understand what we're doing.
Okay, so you're okay with leaving what if I understand correctly, you're okay with leaving what I had changed, but not making the additional change?
Right, it's like Dennis said, it's their document, let them make their money. They gotta earn their money somehow. If we do this for them, then there's no sense in that we get them to write a report, we'll do it ourselves. That's the thing I'm looking at. This is money they're getting paid good money for, a report they're getting paid good money for, and here we are taking and picking it apart and rebuilding it on their behalf, and then they charge us for it. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, so then we're good with comment 2. Then comment 3, so this matches what is on page 21. I tried to make, this is what a lot of us are talking about. So they just said it was a $10, but they didn't talk about the other large size meters, and that's what their appendices show. So to make it consistent with their document and the appendices, they need to add that amount in there. That comment. To add that verbiage. Okay, so I guess the best thing to do is I'll just go through the comments, and if I'll give you just a few seconds to go on. If nothing's said, we'll just keep going. Is that what you want to do?
That's what I'd like to do. I mean, if we see something that we don't like, I'm reading along with the bouncing ball, as they used to say, and if there's something I don't like, I'll put a stop to it, but this is what we were talking about, George. You were out for just a minute. Comment 3 down here on this page, accounts with decreases for larger meters or in proportion to size and capacity of the meter would reduce revenues for water utilities by 2.7 and 14.2%. We're not talking about doing that for the water or the electric service, but the water, if we take and let's just do it in simple math. You're getting $30 a month service charge on your water meter. We knock $10 off, that's 33%. If we take 33% of what the large customers are paying and we knock 33% off the bills, you're talking the thousands of dollars a month. And that's something we got to look at, because that's not a fair deal for the city to have, because of the fact that the meter sizes are so much greater in size, the pipe is so much greater in size. And basically the base charge, the service charge, is if it breaks, the city comes out and fixes it. The street side of the meter belongs to the city, and I'll tell you what, you can chuck up 50 grand on a meter change out real quick on a commercial service, and then you're behind the 8 ball because you didn't collect the money to do it.
Yeah, but by putting that out there, then somebody can't say, well, that's not what this report's saying. We're saying, the report is saying it's gonna be bigger reductions than we agree with. So, okay, so do you want me to read it, or do you just want to follow it? I'm happy, I don't want to read it, so if somebody wants to, if we just want to follow it.
You know what, I'll take a paragraph and we'll just switch around, but this is the recommendation paragraph. Based upon the current financial condition of the utilities, we believe it would be appropriate to reduce the electric energy charge by 3% and the fixed water charge by $10 a month for 5/8 through 1-inch meters. And then what we're talking about adding in there is accounts with decreases for larger meters in proportion to the size and capacity of the meter. This would reduce, and I think it should say city revenues, but revenues is fine because we know we're talking about Boulder City, for the electric and water utilities by 2.7 and 14.2% respectively. We also recommend the city begin accelerated repayment of the raw water line debt, which is what the report says and what we, the committee, also agree. The city can also make additional payments at any time after June 2022, June 1st, 2022, and by using the existing bond reserve, which is currently at $2.3 million, and making additional payments of $600,000 a year, the city can repay the raw water line debt 3 years early. Even after implementing these recommendations, the unrestricted fund balance for the utility funds would still exceed 60% of the projected operating expenditures for fiscal year 2026. Figure 1 below indicates the summary of the combined cash flow projections for the utility funds. Figure 2 indicates the projected unrestricted fund balance, both under existing revenues and with the recommended rate reductions. Now I'm going to go onto the graph, and there's no changes on the graph, so everything looks good. So then the key findings, cost of service analysis, key findings and recommendations. Fellis conducted a cost service analysis
Well, Greg, I don't think we need to really, don't think we need to read everything. I think we just go through the comments.
I don't have any trouble reading it. If you guys want to go to sleep, it's fine. But I'm saying we got to record this somehow, and we can jump around the pages, but this sentence has to be read because it's been changed.
Okay, but that's fine. But I think, because it is recorded, because it's in, these are, both of them are public documents. This is a public document. So I think the faster way is just go to the comment and then read what's associated with the comment.
Well, there's no comment on this line.
So then we're good to go. Oh, I see what you're saying. I just
Okay,
changed the.
so when you change the word, you change the language. So that's why I'm reading it.
Okay, sorry, Miss.
Fellis conducted a cost of service analysis of cost to serve different types of customers depending on how they use electric, water, and wastewater systems. That's the way the language should read. Okay, so that's the change on that.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
now we go down into, it's Rafellis report, page 3 is what the rate study report has for a page. And we're going to just read what we're changing. So by contrast, the cost of service analysis suggests this cost would be slightly lower for commercial customers who are, and it says, more or less expensive, and that's the problem we're having. Okay, they're using the two words, and it doesn't, it's not continuity. There's
No,
no
it has to be
continuity.
less. It has to be less.
It has to be less, so more should be struck out of the document, okay? But this brings the comment that I saw that it says, hey, let's fix it. Not us, the reporter, okay? So then we go down into here and we're looking at city electric amounts pay $10 monthly service charge and the average cost of purchase power per day kWh, and then received during the previous calendar year. That's where they got the rate study from. The city is also not billed for streetlights. Comment that George made earlier. Okay. The problem is we're billed for it based upon the electrical consumption from Meade substation. It all blends into the master meter. Okay, so as we change the streetlights out to LED, we drop our consumption at night, which is where our spinning load reserve is.
And most likely what in the case is it's just considered losses.
That's right.
And so it's probably part of the 5% losses that they calculated for other aspects.
That's correct.
That's what Dwyer told me, yeah.
Yeah, so it's so that comment can be deleted. It was just that to me, it's sort of unfair. They use the city as a saying this is problematic, where it has a purpose.
Yeah, the only problem is we have to at least comment 6 in, because then it messes up the sequential numbering of all the other comments. So
It should automatically do it, but that's fine.
well, let's test it and see.
Yeah, that automatically, I can't read it from back here. Josh, it did, didn't it? Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Okay, so now we go down below and we talk about this last sentence, which says commercial customers are overpaying for both electric and water service. City government customers are underpaying for both electric and water service. Okay, and the comment is, why was there no research to try and understand why the city pays wholesale? And that's something that we talked about at a committee meeting a long time ago. And basically the city services, the city government customers are beneficial to all citizens of Boulder City. And that's typically what a municipal utility does for serving citizens. So that's my past history and experience.
So is that worth keeping, or do we just delete it?
I think I would leave it there, because they have to take and quantify where they got this information from. In other words, why was there no research to try and understand why the city pays wholesale?
Right out of the resolution.
Okay, so
That's where it's from. That's easy enough for them to do.
Exactly. So
Well, actually, but the thing is that some of the research I did is that it came in the last resolution, so it had to come from someplace else too, because before that resolution, I think they were playing wholesale, so I think it might be part of the charter or something.
No, it's
It
not.
could be, but we didn't ask
not
them to,
charter.
we
Okay, but
didn't ask
something
them to do
happened.
that research. I mean, we wouldn't have asked them that. It is what it is, right? So,
Well, but if you're saying it in the beginning that it's wrong, they're saying it's wrong, and they're saying the city should change it. That's what's being implied.
Right, and what I'm trying to say is that because we're a municipality, this is the way it has been and this is the way it should continue to be. The problem is that their driver for cost of service is this underpayment of city government customers underpaying electricity and water, and that's why they want to go cost of service and level everything out.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get a better understanding, especially in the beginning here. So, okay.
I think Dennis, what they could do, pardon me? I would address the comment by a footnote that says, city charter, city, whatever it is, ordinance, whatever, and where it's dated. So that way if somebody wants to read it, they can go back and find it.
yep.
Isn't it the enterprise fund issue that some NRS says these are enterprise funds, therefore the city is now a customer of the electric utility and blah, blah.
I don't think Nevada NRS would have a statement as a municipality. I don't remember off the top of my head how many municipalities are in the state of Nevada. I don't think it's many.
And I'm not sure I was getting your question, George.
Well, Mrs. Pelletier said the whole cost of service thing for the city was driven by the law, that there was now a requirement that the city would be a customer. The electric utilities say, I keep thinking electric, but it's an enterprise fund. So no customer can just walk in and get free stuff, basically. That was her explanation to me for the franchise fee.
Yeah, I think that's fairly accurate. Yeah.
No, I don't agree.
I mean, but city council can still, create policy for whatever they want.
They can make amendments.
They can they can, just like has been done with this very issue, so.
No, but the thing is that, so I think we're basically, some of the stuff that's been said is this is a way you can do it, not the way it has to be done.
Right.
And the thing is that Greg brings up a good point, is that Boulder City is different than almost every other municipality, if not everyone, because Boulder City, all of our utilities are for nonprofit. Our water, our sewer, and electric are all nonprofit. Now, landfill is a contract, but the three major ones are nonprofit. Most everybody else buys their power from Nevada Power or something like that, and so that is a profit. So we are nonprofit, so we shouldn't, we're not necessarily a customer, and this enterprise doesn't make a difference. But these are things that I'd like to discuss in later meetings. Again, I don't want to take a lot of time up here. Just these are things that I disagree with the report too, and I was just trying to help clarify that, these are things that would be to get a better understanding. And so without understanding some of this background, you could just say, oh, well, okay, we're wrong and we should do it. And so that's why I'm trying to get some understanding, and then we can say, use it as a tool.
Okay, back at it. We got another comment here. It's number 8. And we're going to expound upon that a little bit. City staff are not aware of when an electric cost of service and rate study was, well, they said, the way it's written right now, city staff are not aware of when a full cost service study was last conducted. The comment says a cost of service rate study was finalized for the city in April of 2012. That should probably be put down as a footnote, and there should be a number on this thing to show that they've done the research and they found it. Our chairperson has.
So maybe then for the comment can we put it in the comment then, say, could you add this a footnote? That way.
That would be all right. But see, this is, again, we're doing their dictation and we're doing their writing of the report, and they're just gonna take and,
But if we don't do it, if we don't give some suggestions, they won't do it.
Well, we have a person who talks to them on behalf of the city who hired them to do the report, not us.
Who's that?
That guy over there in the dark.
Just checking.
Yeah, well, we know who it is. We'll just put a spotlight, a beacon on your office.
Thank you.
It'll glow.
I appreciate that.
So anyways, down here on number 9 comment, it says the scope of work for this project included conducting a cost of service study and providing rate design options, which is what this actual document is. It gives us many options in accordance with industry standards. So that I say we leave. And then we've got a highlighted yellow, which is probably a strike. Is that correct?
No, in this thing it says, so I'll read that one. Let's see. As noted above, we find that while the utility revenue in total are adequate to recover utility costs, there are variances between revenue recovery and cost of service, which could be addressed by changes to the utility rates. Then it goes down below, recommendations, the city should, is what their original one, the city should adjust rates. So since I highlighted could, in saying that then we should change the other one, the city should consider adjusting rates. So that's the reason I did that was like that.
Yeah, I see that. We'll go down here to number 11. And this is where I feel George is very strong, and I think he's correct. These tables and charts and graphs are so messed up that it would take hours to dissect them and break them up and figure out exactly what's going on. I mean, I saw some that I just was scratching my head, and I said, I'll just wait until we get in here and comment on it, because it's just too messed up.
No, I agree. So do you want to make a larger comment about the appendices, or basically, again, I'm pretty positive they're not going to change them, so we can try to make them as best we can, and then we just review them later and say that.
If I was writing this, if I was making the comment, appendices C through C3 should be taken with a grain of salt. Because that's exactly what it is. They're not anything you can
You
hang
want
your
them to
hat
put
on.
that in the document?
Yeah, if you put my name by it, it doesn't bother me. I used to read these things by the hundreds, and it just drove me crazy. I'm glad I had 4 years of rest on it before I started seeing them again. So anyways,
You're welcome.
yeah. The combined impact on residential and commercial accounts are indicated in figures 1 through 2 below. And the comment on that is more data would be helpful instead of just 2 samples or examples, is basically examples. In general, all customers would see a benefit for reduced energy charges and fixed charges. Okay, no kidding. Everybody'd like to see that. This was assumed to be implemented this fiscal year, FY 2021, but is it unclear if it can be, let's see, this was assumed to be implemented in the future. You know, it's going to be kind of hard to nail down when we're going to do this reduction.
Well, the problem is that what they currently saying is going to be done, and we know it's not going to be done. So at the time this report's it's actually the time the draft was done, it was known that it wouldn't get done. So it's an incorrect statement. So I was just trying to, there again, precision was what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, but the city council can delay it even further. So in other words, you know, they have to act upon it once we have our recommendation. So I'd say leave the comment and just implemented this. I wouldn't say, and I'd even back it up, this was assumed to be implemented this fiscal year, FY 2021. We're trying to get it done by FY 2022, the start of, but there's no guarantee that's going to even happen. So I'd say, you know, within the next, throw it to a vote. We can leave it for the first part of FY 2022, I guess, because that would be within the first 6 months. Yeah, okay. We'll leave that one alone. And I think we've got our contracts locked in for Hoover A and B, correct?
Yep, through 2056 or something. I don't remember what the date is, but yes.
So,
Well, the last sentence, what that is, that's in relationship to the way I understood it, that was in relationship to their figures 1 and 2. And they're saying that the customers they'll see a modest decrease, modest increase due to rate. So this is this is what George is saying. If you do their cost of service, you're going to get a modest increase overall,
Right.
instead of a decrease.
Okay.
And so, maybe we just say we think it's better to strike that.
I think that whole sentence needs to be struck.
Because it also says that the city will pay, the reason I put it, the city pay higher, because if the city interacts, if they pay higher rate, which we don't think they should, then it would be a modest. If the city doesn't, then it's not going to be a modest increase.
Yeah, but we're trying to do this as, see, the thing is, we're not talking city, we're talking residential customer bills.
No, but it's all based on okay, if you go back to the figure, if you go back to these figures 1 and 2, say, I guess is it 4 and 5? I think it's 4 and 5 that they're actually doing it. It's 4 and 5. They're trying to say, okay, really nobody's going to get hurt because if you do these changes we recommend, the bills aren't that different. That's what they're trying to compare. And I'm saying, with all the data they're using, so I agree with George on this, that the data it's not clear. But Dennis, you made a comment you were starting to make a comment and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying, yeah, those tables, that's all.
Okay. But maybe it's just cleaner that since it is confusing and it's not our job to clean it, let's just delete that and delete that line.
Yeah, well, I just put it in as a comment, recommend deletion of last sentence.
Okay, so, and so instead of, so can you highlight that whole line, the residential, Josh? And then we'll make the comment based on so instead of assumes just suggest deleting, the sentence.
All right, we got rock and roll outside again.
Oh, we sure did. Yeah, sorry, so it's the next page, sorry, it's the, I was thinking the page, but trying to keep my pages straight, it was referring to that next part, so. Let's see, are we on, so I think that one's just more of a comment, we've talked about it. I would probably say let's just delete that comment, that's just more egotistical and it's not probably gonna help us, so. I was trying to bring up some of my thoughts, but I think I'll just get rid of it.
Yeah, and then we're gonna go past the graphs.
Right.
And there is one comment I'd like to make, Josh, on figure 5. I didn't know that commercial monthly billing was a 3/4 inch meter. Is that what I'm reading in the graph on page 5 of the report?
Yeah.
What it's saying is that there are commercial businesses with 3/4 inch meters.
And if you take their average bills, then that's what you get. But that's probably that's the cheapest commercial rate you probably have, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, that's the bottom.
So do you have a comment on that? I'm not sure what.
No, I just say leave it alone. I mean, you're gonna find that a lot of people aren't gonna read this thing in detail. Yeah, they're not. And believe it or not, their water and wastewater, which on a commercial, I don't see a cost comparison because they're not getting any kind of discount on the this wastewater charge for 100% of their consumable potable water going down the drain. So I think there might be a little bit of an error in that calculation. But that's just what we got right now to work with. I'm not going to tear this whole document apart and rewrite it.
So I just deleted, so, sorry, Greg, I got ahead of you, so I told to delete 14. Because that was just, so now we're on, it's actually, so we have deleted a couple, so we're at 13, we're now at we're at this document's 15. Which relates to the sentence as such, if you wanna,
Yeah, but you're posing a contractual question, okay? Were all deliverables completed? That's between city staff and Reftelis, not us. You know, we never got our doggone rough draft other than sent to us electronically, you know, presented to us with them standing in front of us, so.
True. Okay, well, so that can be deleted too then.
Yeah, that needs to be just gone.
I just didn't understand exactly what they were saying.
Well, the biggest problem is we got to be careful because we're a committee that's just advisory, and we're not going to be the driver of what the city wants to do with this rate study, but we're going to make recommendations. Okay, we're in section 3.1 background. And this is something we've been arguing about for a long time, and I recommend leaving the comment there. Because that's going to require some more explanation on the administration fund and the expenses, how they jumble all the expenses together into one big pot.
So if they can find a better explanation, be great. If not, at least we made a comment.
Right, we made our comment that we're reading the document thoroughly. I recommend leaving the comment about the FY '20 budget removed from the tables. What was in the draft technical report? Because that's what I am basing a lot of my comments on, is the technical report and how it dovetails into this. But yeah, just not much how the city clarifies reserve, yeah. And do you want them to leave certain restricted circumstances, or do you want to relist that as restricted enterprise funds?
So in this case, I think the way that, it'd just be nice to clarify, because what I have seen in the city's documents is that all they're stated as reserves. But these reserves have restrictions on them. They're not necessarily restricted reserves, they're reserves with restrictions. So maybe that's being too.
Yeah, we might have to get a definition between city and Reptelis on that one.
Yeah, so that one's one, if it's fixed, I think it would be very handy, it'd be helpful to make it read better, but if it doesn't, then it's one we just have to discuss further on.
Yeah, the thing about this document that a lot of people don't understand in the city, the residential, is a lot of this stuff this document is going to be probably 5-6 years before it's looked at again. I mean, in total and redone. So a lot of this stuff we have to kind of clean up now.
That's what I just say. So somebody doesn't go back to the report and says, well, the report said this. Well,
right.
That's what I'm trying to clean up best we can.
We used to have a saying in the trade, be specifically vague. And see, in blue down here on emergency capital reserves, you've already written out that the full amount can be used by any of the utilities in an emergency. So we need to, as a committee, look at that later on and maybe boost that reserve up a little bit, because if you're allowed to use that for electricity, water, sewer, it could be problematic if we have some kind of, like Mother Nature comes through and decides to shake things up. That $5 million capital reserve for all utilities is going to be a little bit lean.
Okay, that's something. Yeah, there's a lot of things to be discussed. So going through this I really appreciate your comment as a tool. I think that's the way to do it, is we just say, okay, if we go back and we say, look at these things, but now let's look at it a little differently.
And the thing is, like Dennis even knows, we might not be on the committee in 5 years to where somebody else has a completely different idea. This is just what we're dealing with right now at this point in time. Yeah, the comment about the landfill closure, that has to be cleaned up. In other words, they've got to take and clean up where they're getting their source documents from to where it makes sense and remains consistent throughout the document. And the way I'm reading this, Dennis, if we have a problem with our landfill construction fund and we run up short, by this document's writing, we can go into the reserve balance of emergency capital reserve to fix it. You know, if we have a 100-year flood come down through that landfill area and it wipes out a whole cell to where we've got to scramble to fix it, that's exactly what the emergency capital reserve fund is for.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it says we can do any improvements. It doesn't. There's no restriction on this one. It's just any capital improvement can be used. So. Yeah,
but I'll tell you what, it's amazing, and we've all seen it with the Boulder City tap transformer. It doesn't take much to blow through $3 million on a can.
Well, this one's being built, though. That's the reason I need to understand it, because this one's being built. It's being increased every year.
Yeah.
Both of them are.
Yeah.
But we've got this on the bills. It says maintenance and construction, and I think it is closure and construction, because I know there's a closure fund.
Yeah, and I believe it's NRS requirement.
Yeah, that is NRS requirement.
But the construction fund we're paying two, so most likely the maintenance fund is the closure. Well, that's what I just want to understand. Where's the 50 cents go and where's the dollar go? Yeah,
that into two separate accounts. Yeah. That'll be
And then it would be nice if the city would show both reserves. Right now they're only showing the closure on their reports.
Yeah, that's something we have to take care of internally.
Correct, sorry.
No, you're doing good. I'm just trying to read through this and see if there's anything else that strikes me as being really out of whack. The other thing we have to keep in mind as a committee is once these capital projects are completed and done, the money's going to shift quite dramatically around, and we might look at another rate reduction later on down the road, a couple years down the road, because we're not going to plunk out $10 million for a distribution transmission line replacement. You know, it's not going to have to be there.
No, and that's another one we want to do sooner and later, I think, is sort of get ahead of that and maybe say in a few years, if everything goes as it's planned.
Well, this is what this document is. It's a 5-year projection, just like we're doing on our CIP, 5 years out.
Yeah, but that's not really telling it the way you're saying it, so.
Yeah, but I don't want anybody to get their hopes up, you know?
I wouldn't do that either.
Yeah. So the comment on the, let's see, there's a comment here on page, let's see a page number on this damn thing. Pardon my language. It says here it does not match the document that was on their technical report, so that's what the comment is, so that should stay. And then the comment for need to update the amount on the operating reserve, and need to update the amount on the unrestricted cash. Those comments should stay.
Yeah, so actually I tried to sort of clean up that area, but it is, hopefully they can clean it up, and if it can't, if we have to talk to the finance later to make sure it's understandable, but trying to break them out is, I think the whole report would make a lot more sense if we break them out than to keep them together.
Yeah, and then the unrestricted cash and 20% operating reserves balance as a percentage of utility operating expenses is a measure of the ability of the utility to deal with unanticipated declines in revenue or emergency expenditures. And here we go with this thing that just bugs me. Take that sentence, if you can, Josh, and move it down to the next page to where it's not cut off. In other words, this whole sentence should be dropped down into page, what they call 9 of the document, to where it continues on. It says revenue or emergency expenditures without reducing service quality or dramatically increasing rates. So when you break that out like that and it's split on 2 pages, it doesn't flow right. So we might have to move that whole line, click down a couple things and get it on page 9 of this document. Do you guys agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To where it's not cut in half.
Yeah, widows and orphans, I believe is what word calls it. Protecting widows and orphans.
Yeah, so the footnote, see, this is what I'm talking about. If we have the footnotes, that would help on this document a lot. So we need to take and make sure that the footnotes are brought down from the other pages on a page-by-page basis, you know, so you can follow the footnotes.
Correct.
The forecast, electric account forecast, water account forecast, wastewater account forecast, we as a group can all work on that on a later time, but this is what I was talking about. If you look on table 2, water account forecast, they've squeezed the residential, single-family, multifamily, commercial potable, the golf course, Cascada potable, city potable, and then raw, all in the same chart. And it doesn't work because we're getting 2 different pipes are coming into the city, so the raw should be broke out onto its own table. And then the potable have on its own table. Because when you get down in here and you look at what SNWA wants to do later on by water consumption reduction, the citizens aren't using the raw water and the potable water in their residences. So they're combining all that together to give you a grand total. It should be another column added to where the raw is one and the potable is another. Because when we switch the muni course over to raw on the water, it's going to swing, what did we figure, Dennis? 1 million gallons a month? A day, 1 million gallons a day of water from potable to non-potable.
So it's about 1 million in the summer, a little less than that, obviously.
So then what happens is what George has been, and George, I agree with 100%, is the fact of the consumption of residential water consumption. If you got the raw and the potable all in one column and you're calling that our water consumption for citizens, it's not true. Raw is raw. It's a whole different num. So all of a sudden you go from 300 gallons per person per day residential, you go down to under 100. If your raw water's not in that chart. And this is the kind of stuff I'm looking at.
That's good. So, again, I'm not sure we can, if we make a comment, well, I think we could just, later on I make the comment about per capita that we come, so, but we can fix something else, otherwise we'll just have to come back to it after the fact.
Because at the last meeting, George, Dennis and I were talking, on tape that there's 2 water meters going into Muni course. And there might be a third for the clubhouse. Yeah, so if those 2 large meters are taken off of the potable water system and tapped onto the raw water system, that just changes the dynamics of this graph just 180 degrees.
Yeah.
And
so-
now all of a sudden you're getting a more realistic usage of your residential customers.
And we're, just to give you a little bit of information there, we've been digging into that a little bit, and we're not exactly sure why they never connected into the raw system, because it's right there. In one part of the golf course, it's within 20 yards. And so we're going back and looking at the hydraulics to see if there's a different, separate hydraulic issue that prevented them from tying in or something else, because it seems odd to me that there was a connection 20 yards away and they never made that.
Yeah.
So we're also talking to some folks that were here historically to see what they know, but it's a mystery right now.
And the thing is, George, if you talk about water consumption residential for potable, and you switch 1 million gallons a day from potable water to raw water, we've just saved the city a percentage of water just by doing that, to where all of a sudden we're within compliance of SNWA's reduction by 2035.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side is the concern about water age on the potable side and maintaining our chlorine residual, because we're going to use less of the potable. So it's just like anything else, it's got its issues.
Well, as Dennis knows, I'm watching the river flows, and they're not looking good this year. So
No, they're not. I'm
less than 50% of so.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it farther upstream in Colorado.
That's what I'm looking at. So we're on a collision course with reality one way or another.
Yeah, and then down here on table 8, it says on page 11 of this utility rate study report, Southern Nevada Water Authority has established a desired 2035 target of 105 gallons per person per day for the communities it serves. If we can get 1 million gallons a day off of the potable water system onto the raw water system, we're going to be darn close to hitting that target way before it's needed. And then we've got some other things we can move off onto the raw water system, and that way we have a balanced load. We use our potable for the citizens, we use our non-potable or raw for incidentals.
I don't understand. The SNWA, they're not talking about potable and non-potable. They're just talking about use from the Colorado River. So I don't think that'll affect our calculations, gallons per day.
If you'd go deeper into the study, SNWA is talking potable versus non-potable.
Yeah, the other difference there is you have to take into account the return flow credit, which we don't have, so.
Yeah, I think I brought that up to Rhett Fallis when they were here.
Yeah, you did. I missed one. I didn't get in here before, and it's a pretty glaring mistake. So, can we go back to page 6? Sorry to take you back. Page 6 on their document 6. It's
What is it?
hold on, you might be going too far. Introduction. Yeah, section 2, introduction. Right there. So section 4. Okay. So let's see if I missed something here or not. So section 4 describes the cost of service analysis. The preliminary objective of the cost of service analysis is to determine each customer class share of the cost of service based on the demand they place on the city's water system. Well, the way they did it on demand of the city water. I think they did it for all three. They did it for electrical, city water, and sewer. So if we can put in, and then put a comment by it, so it'd be placed on the city's electrical, water, sewer system. Because that's what they're saying they were supposed to do, not just the water. I caught that later. So again, if somebody reads it, they don't say, oh, we were supposed to just do on the water. No, they were supposed to do all three.
And then what we were talking about is the reduction on the Colorado River as a whole. If they don't have, if SNWA doesn't have to process the water to potable quality, they're saving a lot of money. Okay, and so there should be, parentheses, a cost reduction on the deliverable cost of water potable to us. But in the overall grand scheme of things, yeah, we're trying to reduce the water coming out of the Colorado River in its entirety. But if you look back on the hydraulic studies, which I looked at when I first started working out here in the El Dorado Valley, there are a couple of underground tributaries or streams that are actually going through the El Dorado Valley and back into the Colorado River itself below the dam. And it's kind of neat to see in the wintertime and in the early spring when that water's coming out of the wall of the Colorado River. And our wastewater treatment plant is treating it to the level we have to ask to have it be discharged into the Colorado River. But what they're trying to do, which I feel is detrimental to the citizens of Boulder City, is they want to build a pumping plant that is going to be much more costly than what they anticipate, and pump it into Henderson Sewage Treatment Facility, which is up at Railroad Pass, and they have not built a large enough pipeline or wastewater treatment setup to handle that additional flow going into the Henderson sewage facilities, or what they call their trunk line. And it would be much more costly than what I anticipate. And then what would happen, just to give you a brief highlight, is we would have to hold our sewage flows in a holding basin until there was a lull in the discharge into the sewage treatment plant, so we could get online to put our stuff in there. And it winds up, I don't care what anybody says, downstream we'd all paid incurred costs all the way down into Henderson and all the way out into the Lake Mead for sewage treatment and pumping costs. And that's why SNWA is trying to get on a solar program to where they can start getting their electricity that they're using for their pumps solar, and that way it costs them less money because they get credit for it. So that's the grand scheme of things out here in this place that I've been working on for 40 years. And it's just an amazing network of spider webs of transmission lines and everything else that is out here. So this study, back to us, this is for Boulder City, and this is to help Boulder City understand. And as long as we can start shifting some of our usage, we're not paying for chemical cost, treatment cost, chlorination, and everything else, so we're reducing our water cost. So that's all we're trying to do on a lot of these things, but it just takes time to get it moving. And with this COVID-19 thing, that just shot everything down. So we're going to pay incurred cost indirects that the city should actually be going to the federal government for because of the delays. We're going to incur $1.5 million to $2 million in additional construction costs on our projects.
Okay, so we can go back to page 11 now. So so the per capita, do we want to, does that, I think that it says we're not happy with that.
I think we ought to leave the comment there.
Okay, now
Just
the
let
thing
it
of
go.
table 8, so Dennis, or is anybody, do you know what happened on table 8? Am I missing something? You've got the annual combination of annual for 3.3 million, then the summer is 1.7, and the winter is 0.498. That doesn't, what am I missing that they don't add up? So that's why I made the comment beforehand, but is there something obvious that I missed? Because that's a big mistake if it's not.
Yeah, I think we just have to ask that question.
Then so that one.
Capita numbers make sense.
Well, if you do, yeah, but they make sense, but they're not they don't make sense compared what,
Right.
like Greg
Yeah,
said,
no, I understand.
overall. So,
I'd like 198 gallons a day at my house raw, so I could water my plants.
If you want to extend a pipeline, a raw water line to your house. you can
Trust
put
me,
it in
we've
there.
done that, we've done that before. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, we'll find out, Larry.
okay, because unfortunately, that's one of the tables I think we'd probably all agree doesn't make a lot of sense to us, but I'm not sure to do their work, what to do with it. And that's, I guess we just say just delete it, but
No,
that,
we can just tell them to validate it.
okay, but it
Probably
will,
in the spreadsheet somewhere. I only
Yeah.
did the electric. It's probably buried in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
it could,
well, let's go through it. Don't we, let's,
Yep.
I prefer you
We'll let them-
follow,
they
I
can
prefer
do
you
that.
follow along and let them do it. Okay, so now let's see, so 12, I don't think I had any page, let's see. Page 13, I didn't have anything, and then so page 14,
Yeah, I'm just scanning through it. I think that the comments in blue, or baby blue, I call it, are great for just cleaning up the document so they can see that we as a group have read it. Larry, you've done most of the work, but I've read it and now I'm just rereading it to get my brain around it. So here's one here on their page 14. We're gonna start there.
Josh has got it up, Greg.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. Oh gosh, here we go to sentences again.
Like I said, and make sure if anybody had any comments, that you'd seen as we go through, please let me know. Please bring it up.
Well, I'm looking at this one here. The forecasted expenses for fiscal year 2022 and beyond are greatly based upon preliminary 21 budget received February plus inflation. Subsequent to preliminary budget, the city considered the near-term fiscal impacts. Skip the page and go down. COVID-19 pandemic. Were we as a utility affected by COVID-19, Dennis?
our budgets got slashed for this fiscal year. Sorry. Our budgets did get beat up a little bit, for this fiscal year. We are hoping to put them back to what I would consider the normal operating budgets next year. But yeah, we did, so.
Because I've noticed I've used more electricity.
When we submitted the initial information to Raftalis, it was very different from what ended up for FY '21, so. And that was mostly, unfortunately, maintenance that got slashed, if that's the terminology that I should be using.
Yeah, that's one of the
So-
parts that's broken out as maintenance, and that's the one that was cut the most, was
It was.
maintenance. But I guess the thing I had a problem with is the preliminary one was not approved by the council. If it was, it wasn't intended to be the final one, so to go with the preliminary one doesn't seem, I think you'd be better off going with the 20 than the preliminary 20, going with the 20 budget that was approved instead of a preliminary budget that hadn't been approved or hadn't even been finalized. So it is what it is. Maybe we should just delete it. To me, it didn't seem right, but.
Well, the problem is it was bad timing, yeah.
Okay, so this is deleted. It's probably nothing to be done, so just delete that comment.
Yeah. All right, so what comment number is this one here? I can't see it.
Let's see, on our page, it's, no, we're at 30 now. So the 30, because we've deleted a bunch.
All right,
I have a question on the report where it says, the 1.4 million is based on an internal analysis performed by the city's finance department regarding costs which are incurred to support the utility funds. I'd like to see that analysis. Is that possible, Dennis?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
It says, accordingly, the 1.4 million central services
yeah.
administration fee has been incorporated And it says it was based on an internal analysis performed by the city's finance department. And is it possible to see that analysis?
Yeah, but I don't think it actually exists. I mean, I think what really happened is they took that difference.
So they just,
With regards to the cost of service again.
We appreciate your honesty.
Equalized it to match whatever that would have to be made up to the general fund.
well, no,
Now, the 1,025,000.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, oh, yeah, I can check on that, yeah.
yeah.
I believe there was
The franchise fee was just pulled out of the air.
yeah, no, the 1,025,000, I believe, came out of the previous rate study, but I'd have to get back with finance, but yeah, we can check on that.
Well, we have three things going on. You have the 1.025.
Right,
But you have I believe what she's talking about is the 1.4.
Right.
So they're increasing the 1.25
To
to the
1.4,
1.4. And so, George, I think if I remember correctly, if you remember, is that, so you were saying the cost of the central fee was 11% they could charge? Is that what do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that's, well, let me look it up. I don't have it in my head. I have the letter from Mrs. Pellet.
So what they said, I believe, is that the central service, according to Nevada statute, said doesn't have to be, could charge as much as 11% of the revenues. I believe it's revenues, overall revenues.
yeah,
And that the franchise fee could charge up to 5%.
yep,
And so they didn't use 11%, but they used about 5% to go up. So they just said, okay, here's 5% for the central service fee, and here's 5% for the central fee. And that's pretty much, when you go through the document, you can see that.
yep.
And so that's why and that's, I think, one of the reasons we said we can't agree with that. It doesn't flow.
Right, and what the city's financial consultant, not the rate study consultant, did was an assessment of what the city of Las Vegas, city of Henderson, city of North Las Vegas were doing, and kind of did a comparative analysis, just to see if it was in the ballpark.
But they're not. But they're not full. We are a full. That's one thing we're trying to keep on saying is we're a full municipality. We are a nonprofit. Show us one nonprofit that they actually compared us to. 100% nonprofit.
They're all, the utilities in Henderson and North Las Vegas are all nonprofit.
Well, you said they actually Nevada Power supplies them their power. They're not a separate utility.
Just on the energy, but they're enterprise funds for water and sewer.
Yeah,
that
but still-
they charge franchise fees
Yeah,
to,
so
so.
again, you can, doesn't mean it's right.
No, no, I'm not, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying they did an assessment and did a comparison and said, is that percentage in the ballpark? And the answer was yes. That's all. And that document is available.
So what I was trying to get at here too with Eileen is also is that sort of, and the same thing with here is, and so can we ask for this, is that we don't, since the franchise fee and the 0.4 hasn't been approved, can you at least put two tables together?
Yeah.
One with it and one without it, and show here's what's going to happen without it. And then you'd have to spread that
I gotcha.
through to the cost flows and out there. It wouldn't necessarily help with the overall aspect, but we're not necessarily agreeing with the overall aspect anyway, but it shows what we believe to be more of what costs are needed from the utilities.
Right.
So that's what I think in one of these I was trying to get that across in my comments. And so if we want to highlight that more or not, that's what I was trying to get across. So did I cut you off, Eileen, or did?
Yeah,
but I think-
my point is that this is referring to an internal analysis performed by the city's
Right.
finance department. Is there such an analysis? And if so, I'd like to see a copy of it.
Right.
Well, and if not, then it should be deleted.
That's right.
The sentence should be deleted.
It should say the amount was pulled out of the air.
And I don't think, Eileen, the city has ever done, and it's one of those things that, careful what you ask for sometimes, but I don't think they've ever done like a direct cost service study with regards to what the services provided by the utility fund, by the city general fund folks is. I don't
Well,
think that's ever been
there
done.
should be one done. It doesn't necessarily have to hire an outside consultant. They can do that in-house by just having employees track their time.
Yep, and I've seen it done various numbers of ways.
And I've done it myself, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it done based on a pro rata share of salaries and then, number of FTEs and all that stuff. But yeah, it just hasn't been done as far as I know.
Well, I think to be on the safe side, can we just ask for it to be deleted?
Yep.
So highlight that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same.
But I agree with Eileen. I mean, there is a principle at work here is that they're being deceitful if they're referring to a document that doesn't exist.
Well, we just need to clean up their language.
But it's not, it's a matter of they're deceiving us. They're saying there was an internal document and we're saying it actually doesn't exist. And that just disturbs me if we sort of accept that, oh, well, they just said something, they just made something up. I mean, they shouldn't be doing that. There should be some kind of consequences if you make stuff up in a report that you've paid $200,000 for. I realize that's a difficult kind of territory, but we're kind of sort of concluding they made that up. And it's like, we need to highlight that.
No, we don't know if they made it up or if the city told them that. We don't know.
Well, I think to leave the comment and let them address it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Josh, what do we have there? So did we get that put in to delete? Yeah, why don't you just, instead of, maybe unhighlight, let's see, we might have to delete that no, I think we can, yeah, okay. Let's see. Because I guess the comment to why we should be, actually, I would say let's delete maybe we should delete most of this. In addition, the franchise fee equal to 5% of utility rate revenue has also been included, which will treat city utilities in a manner similar to private utilities. What does that add? It hurts us more than it helps us. Again, if somebody reads this and says, oh, okay, that's okay. So do we just delete the whole thing? So the, yeah, so they're including the 1.4, so they've done that statement, but the second sentence, the 1.4 million is based on all the way to the end of that paragraph, I think should just be deleted. It's not, it's part of it we don't believe is true and part of it isn't helping us.
Well, my point is that the comment should be in there. We should add a comment about the 1.4 asking for documentation of the study. They can leave it in there, that's their statement, but...
No, but if it's not true, I don't want it in there for future people to...
Well, that's Ratvallis's problem for putting something in there.
It becomes ours because people might think it's true.
But we're not vouching for the document. I mean, I agree with Eileen.
What we're asking is for them to put in a footnote of where that study is.
Okay, so Eileen, why don't you fix it, so make sure, I don't want to take away what you did. What do you want, how do you want to fix those? What do you want to do with those comments there?
Maybe just add, please document the internal analysis performed by the city, document its existence or...
Where is the source document?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Please supply a footnote where the source document is at.
Was that it, Eileen, or on that one?
Yeah, that's good.
Sorry if I didn't mean to confuse the issue. Apologize. But what about that last comment, though? In addition to franchise fees equals to 5%, I guess it's good to know that it's 5%, that if they're going to leave it in there, but treat it in a manner similar to private utility, why, it almost seems like that's okay. Am I misreading it, or?
Well, I like your comment about why the Boulder City utilities should be treated similar to private utilities.
Just leave it like that, then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to add one word into that last sentence that says, in addition, a proposed franchise fee equal to 5% of utility rates has been included in this document?
Yes, that's great. Yeah, it's all this.
Because we can't take that out because that has been proposed in the document several times. And if we take it out, we got to clean the whole document up, and I'm not going to redo their writing.
No, that's a great idea, proposed.
So I think what we should do is, on that last sentence, is this is the way I would think it should read, is in addition, And then we can put parentheses, a proposed franchise fee equal to 5% of utility rate revenues has been looked at in this document, which will treat city utilities in a manner similar to private utilities. And then we've already added the disclaimer that we're not a private utility, we're a municipality, but that's in another part of the document. But they would, if they read that, they would know that the franchise fee is a proposal, not an absolute.
So Josh, why don't you just put that in, so I'm thinking this one's cleaner to put it in the sentence, don't you? Instead of putting it in the comment, just put it in the paragraph there. Greg? Make it so it's totally clear where we want it.
Yeah, that's fine, but I'm just throwing out a feeler because it's just, it's us, we're being recorded, and I want to make certain that the public knows that it's a proposal, it's not an absolute.
Right, so Josh, if you can go up to that, yeah, in addition, put it right there. I think that would make it easier to see. So right there in front of A, can you get your cursor right on the A? Okay, then put, what do you say, a proposal? So in addition, a proposal?
Yeah, in other words, proposal. Yeah,
Proposed, yeah.
in addition, a proposal, shoot.
A proposed.
I'm trying to think how to say it. Proposal or proposed?
Yeah, I guess that would.
Yeah, I would just say proposal 4A.
A proposal for a proposal for a, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get rid of all the A's.
I think they'll figure it out.
I'm trying to streamline it. I just read a document today and I was going, my eyes were going crossed because they kept using the same word over and over and over and over again. I'm going, what the heck? So, yeah, that comment, whatever number it is, we can add it in. You can put it in purple or whatever color you want to use. But the way it reads right now, they're talking about we're going to charge a franchise fee. No, the document is a proposal. And then we get down into the charts that George was talking about, that franchise fee, because it's not an absolute, it's just a proposal, then those numbers can't be added into our revenues and into our payments out to the general fund.
Right, so that's what I'm asking, we're asking for, can we get this, can we get separate tables that doesn't show it? Take it
Yeah.
out, don't make us do the math. Yeah.
That's all it is, yeah. The thing is, I feel, because I've lived in a municipality before, a very large one, some of the stuff that the city does is a benefit to the citizens, i.e. the parks, the parkways, the landscaping and everything else. That's part of we're already paying for it through the utility. We don't need to keep charging more.
Let's see, Dennis, would it affect you and Eileen if we turn on your set of lights? I don't know if it'll help enough of us. It's starting to get dark and. It would help me. Yeah. Can you see if it'll? Yeah, see, and see if it helps the rest of us. Because that one, are we watching mostly this monitor or? Okay. Yeah. No, the other ones, not those. Nope, there's one more, because we did it last time. There you go, that's it. There you go. And is that, yeah. And then so we can see that one cleaner still and that. Thank you. So on the note, I guess the best thing is, I don't know if anybody has anything, suggestions to clean it up, probably just get rid of, so what I have on the page is note 32, it says this still needs to be reviewed. I guess just delete the comment, I guess. I don't know how to fix it. But I just still don't think it's telling the true story. So if does anybody have any comment, any thoughts? So, which is now, the comment up on the screen is 30, or did you already delete it, Josh? Okay, well then just move on then. So you want me to go through now? Oh, lovely. Okay. I guess the 33 I originally wrote when I hadn't seen that they were using the preliminary budgets. The personnel costs were reduced a small amount between the preliminary budget and the final budget of 21, but they were not reduced between 20 and 21, so they just kept going up. So when they have it in all the tables that the personnel costs were reduced and that they're just bringing them back up to speed, to me that doesn't say it's not totally true, and that's what I tried to write here. So I don't know if we agree with this or you just want to delete it. I guess it's going to them to say if they can fix it, great. If not, then I guess we leave it alone. But it frustrates me to see in their notes that most all their tables show that personnel costs were reduced when they weren't reduced. They weren't reduced from the year before. They were reduced a small amount, $90,000. That's all they were reduced.
So what you're saying is, based upon what you were reading, is the table started out 11.6% higher than what they actually were.
From 2020.
Yeah, so the tables need to be adjusted to show reality.
No, the tables are what they are, but their note says for instance, on page 16, let's see. Is that the right one? Technical personnel 2. Fiscal year 22 increase restores funding that was reduced in fiscal year 21 due to COVID-19. So I guess that is a true statement because it's based on the preliminary budget. It's not based on the final budget, but it really wasn't reduced from 20. It was reduced a small amount. But there's a large difference between the personnel costs, especially in electric. Electric's the one that you really see it on the page. I was just trying to get that cleared up a little bit. If you look at table 12, let's go to table 12. It's next page, Josh. And then go over to if you look at that, you look at the 9 million compared to the 1.2. So that was a big jump. And so they're saying they're doing that because it was reduced. Well, it was reduced by $90,000 from the preliminary to the final. To me, that's not a true, okay, I'm looking at the wrong one. Personnel was 1.8 compared to 2.1. I was looking at the maintenance above it. But it's still a pretty large increase for what actually happened. So to me, that number 2 isn't the same as maintenance was reduced. Yes, maintenance was. Personnel was not reduced in the same amount. So maybe I'm being too technical, but to me, it's putting in if going through the notes, it doesn't make sense.
How much was personnel reduced then? I'm trying to figure out that.
Personnel from the fiscal year preliminary to the fiscal year final, I believe it was only $90,000. And so
Well, I disagree. We're down 4 linemen.
But this is budget. This is budget. They kept those 4 linemen in the budget.
So, yeah, and I would just say this, let's just have finance take another look at this. Then I know they looked at it once, but we'll have them look at it again.
Okay, so then just,
Yeah.
if you want to leave my
Yep.
comment in or just
Yeah,
take
just
out,
leave it
Jay.
there.
Okay.
So we can look at now, then?
Yep.
Okay, so page 16.
That's what, table 12?
Okay. Well, actually, the one that I did put it on the one above it. Let's go to see if people want to leave that on or leave it not right there. The land sales. So one of the problems we have is that for the capital improvement, we're not emphasizing that, and Dennis, is it 2022 or 2023 that the voter approval is up?
I believe it's 23.
23.
Yeah.
So the end of 20, so we can get money through 23. That's what, the capital project still
Yeah,
shows
I think
it
so.
some. But
We'll
are we doing
convert.
anything to ask for more money after 23?
Well, we are not.
But
Me.
But is that finance? Is it, who do we do to see if, does that need to be put on the ballot again? Is that something we need to put on
I
the ballot?
believe, yeah, I think it would have to be a council election.
So, but it seems like something we want to, see, this is another one, the report doesn't say it's going to go away, and I would think that'd be a big thing in this report.
No, I think it does in here. It's somewhere
no,
in here, it does.
But it's not a major detail. It just keeps on harping on, oh, you got so much external stuff that
Yeah.
you're great. Well, no, we're not gonna have external stuff if we don't get this revoted on.
Yeah, so, I mean, if it's something, I think to me, that's something, whoops, I'm sorry. To me, if that's like a recommendation that wants to come out of the committee that they, yeah, because right now it has an ending date that's done, I mean. And I'm assuming that was a voter ballot that created it to begin with, and if that's something this committee thinks the council should do, then that's probably something you guys should agree upon and move forward with. I mean, because they're working on the ballot questions right now, so.
Right.
So, I mean, for 23, you might have time, I'd have to work that through the clerk's office as far as the timing. But you certainly, it would be a challenge to get it on this next April. I just don't see that happening right now, but if we've got those additional years, then sure, yeah, you could work that into the system somehow.
Are you talking about solar lease?
The solar and the land
I
sales.
think it's land sale, potential land sale revenue. It could be solar lease, I suppose.
That's what I understood
I
this
mean,
to
yeah,
say.
that's,
Because the council right now is looking at putting on the ballot measures to take, I believe it's land sale money, and I don't remember if it's solar lease or not, to put towards the capital projects for the pool.
right,
So now would not be
yeah,
a good time to
That's correct.
yep.
ask about that. Just
It's
land
just,
sales.
yeah, it's just a piece, what is it, 350, I think it was, by the golf course? That was the money they were talking about utilizing.
Yep, and that one's already been, I think there has to be there's some ballot language I know they're working on, but I would have to go refer to the clerk's office.
Okay, but we might want to ask it sooner than later, because we don't want to lose the solar money. if we can't move on to-
No, you gotta understand, we're locked in until 2023. Okay, our ballot question will come up during that ballot cycle, okay? The one we're talking about right now that was just talked about, I think it was yesterday, is they're talking about parcel 350 and one of the other small solar farms. They're talking about diverting some money into the pool fund.
Right.
So we would have, because we have what, every other year, so we would have, so this will be 20,
Well, what I was just gonna say was, they've also changed when they're having, the voting cycle.
Right.
Yeah,
this
it's not gonna be as frequent going forward as it has been in the past.
this is the last June one we'll have,
Yeah, I
right?
think you're correct,
And
yeah.
then we go to the normal, every 2 years?
Yeah, I think
Every
I
two.
think it's tied to either the presidential or whatever, so that they're not having to pay for a separate election just for city.
Yeah.
So it's, I
Boulder
guess,
City.
it'd just be nice to know if we can get that into the 23 cycle is off, or can
Yeah.
it be extended beforehand, if not?
Well, we can certainly check with the clerk's office on that, but I
That'd be-
mean,
be
if that's, to me, that's, if that's a recommendation this committee wants to make, that we redirect some of that future potential revenue.
So do we want to leave that state, do we want to add that sentence and put it to 23, or do we want to delete it then? Because I don't think they make it clear, that's the reason I put it in there. If somebody finds it, or they say it's already in there, that's fine, but I don't think they make it clear that it's up in 20.
I think the only place it's clear is in a table, if my
That's
memory serves
table
me
or
right.
footnote, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd prefer to see it when they're actually talking about it. So if we change that, if we get rid of the parentheses and just add the 20, change the 22 to 23, are we okay, or do you prefer not to add that? What does the committee want to do?
I think I'd leave it in there as a reference point, so we're reminded when we come back through this document, we gotta do some paperwork on that.
Okay, so Josh, I'm sorry, the rest of it, is everybody else okay? Eileen?
Yeah, I'm fine.
George? Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, just, Josh, just delete the parentheses. And change the 22 to 23. Thank you. And then the next sentence, so it's the first sentence where the highlighted, you'll see it says, the external sources of capital improvement financing have a significant impact. Well, it only has a significant impact on water and sewer. It doesn't have a significant impact on electrical. So I just deleted significant. Is that a problem? I didn't put an explanation. So we could put a comment if somebody wants to that says electrical. It's not a significant source for electrical. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll leave it as it is and go forward. So my next comment then, once the backbone has been replaced or updated, most, if not all, the capital should be funded from current resources. So when they say, when the external sources are not significant to fully fund utility capital project in a given year, the city has historically relied on cash or pay-as-you-go financing of capital improvement projects. I'm sorry, because that's the one below it. I need to read this one. PAYGO funding represents funding either from, they had restricted fund, I guess current revenues or restricted funding. Is that the current? Okay, I guess what I was trying to say is that once the backbone is done, it would be PAYGO funding represents funding either from current revenues or unrestricted fund balance. Most cases, though, once we get the backbone done, it won't be unrestricted. It should be coming from current revenues.
I think we need to delete that comment.
That's fine. That's fine. It had significance, I thought, but maybe it just confused the issue. Okie doke. So 17. So this is where I start having more. So again, with George's aspect of the tables, I agree with, they have a lot to be desired. So this is the only tables, I believe. So on page 17, Josh, thank you. These are the only tables that show what the external sources and how they reduce it. So they take the reduced PAYGO and they go forward to the other reports. So that in some of these comments then going forward, that's what I'm asking is to make sure that can we add the extra sources into the cash flow tables to make it cleaner. Okay, so then now let's go to page 18. So the comment, so I don't know if you guys want to read those really quick. Can everybody read it? So if you want to add those in or not. Okay, table 18 indicates electrical utility cash flow projections. So I need that. In fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021, projected expenditures are expected to exceed projected revenue. So in 20, we need to get rid of 20 because that is no longer valid. We're not talking about 20 anymore. It's done. So that one definitely has to be deleted. And then it's not will, it's expected to, because if they don't do all the changes, it won't be. So then the next one's, so are we okay with leaving those changes? Okay. If the majority of the ongoing and fiscal, so I've added if the majority of the ongoing and fiscal year 21 capital is completed, with the difference being funded through the use of the electrical funds available cash balance. And that's another one where I was trying to clean things up, and I guess we'll just have to go with what they're. I was trying to get that unrestricted to what it should be, but if they can correct it, great. If not, then I guess we'll just have to work with it later. So the last one doesn't have to be kept, but the first part needs to be. So are we just okay with leaving it, or has anybody got a problem?
What was the comment on the side, Josh?
Okay, so the next one is footnote Yeah, footnote 8, so let's go to footnote 8. It's on the bottom. And footnote 8 says, the revenue projections presented assume reduced rates are effective for bills rendered on or after January 1st, 2001. Well, we know they're not going to be done before January 1st, and most likely, unless something changes with the impact statement, they're not even going to be done they're not even going to be done in fiscal year 21. So that should either be deleted or modified. So my footnote says, footnote needs to be updated since the rates will not be reduced before January and most likely not before July 1st, 2021. And then they can let them fix it. Okay, and then the next one, again, it is a lot easier to, so there I'm just trying to say, please break it out. You see what's highlighted, unrestricted fund balance of 6.4 million or 40% of operating expenses. So they combine the available cash and the operating to get that. And so you don't know what's operating and what's the cash available. So I just said, it's better if we can break it out. I think I didn't do that as much. It's just sort of emphasizing, please do it. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay, page 19 then. 19, anybody have any comments on any major flaws that we wanted to point out on table 18? So we already went by table 6. I think you were doing that, Greg, so did you have any comments on that table itself, or so we went way past it, so I just want to make sure before we get any further, are you good with your comments earlier, Greg, on table 6? Table 6.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I'm looking at the notes, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And I do believe that note 9 needs to be deleted. The GF franchise fee, we're not going to entertain that. So do we leave that in there? Because if we leave it in there, we're not going to get a correct mathematical equation.
Well, I think what's going to have to happen is, I bet you we'll probably be lucky for them to do 2 tables, because I bet you they won't reduce this table. Unless Dennis Finance agrees that it shouldn't be in there. So it depends. Would the city be willing to request it right now? Under our recommendation, I know they're not going to eliminate it. The best we can do is to ask them to put 2 tables together. So George, Greg, I think that's the best we can do, unless I'm missing something. So we'll just leave that. Those comments are for that table, and we want them to have another table that shows it without it. Then at least, again, we have the 2 tools.
I mean, this gets to my initial point at the beginning, where you have to actually redo all of the tables because all of them have the franchise fee in it.
And that's the problem I'm having. In other words, if we reduce it if we get it out of one, we got to take it out of all of them, and then all the numbers are going to be skewed.
Well, if that's why you have to have 2 tables. So, and they can do it. It's not easy, but they can do it.
And I'm concerned what they're going to charge us. Is that going to be $100,000 to redo the whole study, or what?
I don't think it's that difficult. They've got everything. I mean, I don't think it's that hard.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's difficult. I'm saying how much are they going to charge us? It's no one's arguing that it's difficult.
That'll be my worry I have to deal with. So.
Well, it would be good at least for us to know how much the whole exercise cost at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
So Greg, does that cover that's one thing we need to push, and I guess we need to make sure that it's there, and maybe if additional comments at the end, that's a big thing. If it wasn't clear in our comments, Dennis, we need it somewhere to make sure it's clear that we definitely want.
I hate to be the devil's advocate, but I'm going to throw it out here. Once this document is handed to them and they make all the changes, we got to go through it again.
We won't be able to, because that's the final document.
Once it's printed up and handed to the city, we as the committee need to have the right to go through it one more time.
Well, I guess I think that's good. It's a good. Dennis, is there any leeway? So am I understanding, Greg, you want it before the final, you want a final draft and or a final, and we're go through it, but not have them make any changes? Make sure I'm understanding.
If our company that we hired to do this report misses a couple tables or a couple line items, that we've highlighted, we've made comments on. The only time we're going to see it again is on the final version. And then we're going to have to meet again as a committee and make sure that they got the final report the way we want it written. And if it is not, then we should have the right as the committee to amend the report to our recommendations.
I'm not so convinced that we should be, I mean, it's their report at the end of the day, it's not ours.
So let's do this. Let me just run this issue of, can you separate this into two separate, basically it's options, right? With the tables and see what kind of effort it is. And if it's not that big a deal, we'll just have them do it.
But bottom line, I agree with Eileen's original comment, or someone mentioned, we're just giving some input here. I think we should just give a report on the report and say, here's what we think of it.
Right.
It's not our report, it's theirs.
I agree.
And that would be more productive, I think.
Okay, page 21. So I guess just that footnote 9 needs to be modified the same as footnote 8 is my comment there. So can you roll it over? I'm just saying that, yeah, so footnote 9 needs to be revised. Same thing, they're trying to say that it's going to be done on or after January 1st. It's going to be done on. So 20, I don't think there's anything we can do on 22, but did anybody have a problem with the table 22?
Did anybody bump the math on this?
I didn't. Did you do the math?
Yeah, and my wife also did it as an independent study, but if you look at the regular repayment, FY 2022, the principal is $1.7 million. The interest is $448,000 for a total regular of $2.229 million. Then you look at the accelerated payment. The principal is $1.818 million. Additional principal is $600,000. Your interest is sitting at the $351,000. But you notice the total doesn't drop by the additional principal? Each year, you pay an extra $600,000, and the principal, the interest, the total doesn't drop by $600,000. What's going on?
That's a good, well, actually, it should have dropped a lot. Okay, no, there's your two, well, because they're adding 230 from the reserves and the 600 on that. They're adding
2.3 million.
Plus 600, yeah.
Right, but I'm saying if you look at the accelerated repayment schedule on, we'll just say FY 2023, you got a principal of $1.818 million. You have an additional principal reduction of $600,000. Well, guess what? That $600,000 isn't taken off the next year's principal.
So if you're looking at it right, then theoretically it should be reduced by fiscal year 28, not 29 then too.
That's correct. And the problem is if you take and you start, we'll just say for kicks and giggles, look at 2023. Your principal on the accelerated repayment schedule is $1.818 million. You take $600,000 off the $1.818 million. How do you come up to $1.856 million?
Yeah, no, you're right. They took the same numbers, exactly the same numbers through 22 through 28, and then they did not reduce it by their additional principal.
That's correct. And so that table's all messed up.
No, that's a very good catch. That's a great catch.
And Dennis, what that does is that makes our repayment schedule faster.
Yeah, by a lot.
I know they got this directly from finance, so we'll just have to verify it.
So
I mean, it wasn't anything the rate consultant did. They just got it from the finance departments.
But let's put a comment in there so we can, if you do it by both ways, if you tell the finance group and then we'll tell them also. So can you can you highlight table 2?
Yep.
See the word table 2?
Yep.
Josh?
Yep, that would be
Table
good.
22, below? Is it part of that where it says table, go to your left? So can you highlight that? And that was that table 22 or table 21? That's,
I just did that on my RV trailer, Mom was amazed.
okay, which table is that? Which table is that?
You know, it's funny, it's table 22, I think.
No, it's
have a number.
it's a no
Well, it
number.
should be 21.
Yeah, but it should be marked as table 21.
It's not, it's just a no number.
It's
See
a
what they did?
non-existent table.
Yeah, they took it just.
So where do we make the
copied
comment
it.
out? We need to make the comment somewhere, so it's not table 22, so Josh,
Well, I got it here, so we're
Use
good.
the number 14 font and put check your map.
yeah. Okay, I guess, I know we don't want to let's take a 5-minute break and keep it to 5 minutes, and then we'll get back to it, so quick 5-minute break. So is there any other things that I'm missing? Make sure you let me know. Yeah.